This young man was stunned when he found himself waking up in a very strange place. Minato didn't understand what the hell was happening around him and saw a strange face with black hair in the mirror. The young man wondered where his distinctive silver hair had gone. Before Minato could finish being confused, a pair of doctors and a nurse noisily entered the hospital room. After conducting an examination, the doctor was astonished. They discovered that the injuries from the previous car accident he had suffered had completely healed, as if they had been cured by holy magic. Indeed, they had been healed by holy magic. But what about the car accident? Minato asked the magic doctor in confusion if his magic was depleted. But the doctor basically didn't understand what the patient in front of him was talking about. He said he had fought monsters throughout that disaster event. This only made both the doctor and nurse even more bewildered. Has this guy been in the hospital too long and gone crazy? Can you tell me your name and what year it is now? Ichikami Minato, and now it's probably around 1970, right? The doctor felt a buzzing in his head. This kid has severe after effects. Your name is Kusanagi Minato, and this year is 2022. This time Minato panicked. I am Kusanagi Minato, and this is 2022. These two don't seem to be lying. That TV is thin and sharp in resolution, too. The calendar on the desk is also 2022, and the small device the nurse is scrolling on is something he's never seen before. This really seems to be the future. This is serious. Now, the old person from the new era, what the hell does he not know? So what should he do? The doctor said the disaster he mentioned was already 50 years in the past. It no longer exists now. Monsters still exist, but not many, and the world has returned to its original peace. If so, no matter how hard the truth is to accept, you have to thank heaven and earth first. Now you must accept that Ichikami Minato of 1970 sacrificed himself to save the world and then reincarnated into the body of Kusanagi Minato. Although no one knows how such a difficult thing was done, a few weeks later, Minato was discharged from the hospital. Following the original owner's memories, he returned to his room, so this is Kusanagi Minato's room, which is also his own. Kusanagi Minato's parents died when he was young. Since then, he lived off the money they left behind. Minato lay on the bed thinking. He didn't believe in reincarnation or his miraculous revival. It must be the work of the gods. Minato read Kusanagi Minato's documents and learned that he was attending Kamui Magic Academy. In Minato's time, there was nothing like this. It's quite interesting. Suddenly, there was a sound from Minato's bag. He picked up the phone and Tadano was calling him. For a moment, he didn't know what to do with it, so he threw it aside, not even bothering to care. On the phone were a series of spam messages from Tadano. Heard you got discharged. Hurry to school, I'm out of money. Early the next morning, Minato somehow appeared at school already grown up. Being the same age as the students, Minato was still allowed to attend school, which made him a bit nervous. It sounded great. But Minato immediately had to judge this school. A young man shouted loudly and flicked a weak fire spell at the wooden puppet in front of Minato. Using his sharp eyes, Minato looked around. Everyone had only weak magical power. He held his head in disappointment, unable to believe that the descendants of mages were so poor. Compared to when Minato first started, these guys weren't even 1/10 as good as him. Minato walked in with a gloomy face, unaware of how many eyes were watching him. Once in class, Minato regained his mood and sat at his desk. He felt like he had gone back to those days. It was really exciting. Minato wondered if the original owner had any friends. Then the gang arrived with a loud stomp and a loud voice behind him. You dog ignoring my messages. You're just some Kusanagi. Nobody, how dare you act like that? Minato calmly replied, Who are you guys? A red-haired guy suddenly lunged forward and kicked Minato, shouting, Damn, you remember the legendary Tadano Jun, you useless trash. Minato remembered the name Tadano on his phone. Oh, he's my friend, huh? Jun smirked and held out his hand. You remember now, huh, idiot? Do you even know what a friend means? Minato immediately grabbed Jun's hand tightly. Of course, friends help each other. Jun shook off Minato's hand, grabbed Minato's collar as if he wanted to devour him, and said, Where's your money? Spit it out quickly. Your old folks' assets are still plenty, right? Minato sighed. Only now did he understand that Kusanagi Minato didn't have friends but was being bullied. Jun was like a pufferfish. Every word Minato said provoked him, furious and wanting to punch him. Just then, the classroom door opened and a clear, coquettish voice rang out, greeting good morning to the girl with green hair whose whole presence seemed enchanting. Her face was bright and radiant, her whole body graceful with smooth thighs. Just that was enough to make Jun look at her mesmerized saliva almost dripping onto Minato's face. In front of his goddess, he dared not do anything, only threatening Minato a few words before storming off. Today's lesson happened to be history class. The professor was talking about the supreme mage Ichikami Minato, who sacrificed himself to end this horrifying event. Everyone in the class nodded while learning history combined with the professor's soothing voice as monsters spread everywhere in the world, pushing humanity to the brink of extinction. But the leader in magic at that time, also called the Supreme Mage Ichikami Minato, thought differently, and a series of other events followed that everyone knew about. The professor asked the class if anyone knew exactly who Ichikami Minato was. The green-haired girl, Mizuha, stood up and answered that he was the only survivor after the first disaster, and also the first mage besides being the reason for founding the Magic Academy. Kamui too, sir, Mizuha said, her eyes sparkling, showing her admiration for her idol, Minato. The professor confirmed Mizuha's answer was completely correct. Minato was the first human to use magic. This Magic Academy was established with the purpose of training many mages like Ichikami Minato. Back then, Minato was the greatest mage in human history. The professor emphasized that this content would also be on the test. Meanwhile, Minato hung his head low over his paper, silently hoping the professor would stop because all the embarrassment cells in his body had been activated. Minato's unusually trembling state confused his classmates while he was regretting coming here to listen to others praise him the whole lesson. However, since the world was peaceful, it seemed the later generations of mages gradually became weaker. Minato gazed absent-mindedly outside, admiring the clear blue sky. How long had it been since he last felt this peace? He didn't know how much time had passed. The professor ended the lesson and reminded them there would be a comprehensive magic assessment tomorrow. Jun took the chance to go to Minato and sneered, "Have you heard there's a comprehensive magic assessment? Tomorrow, seeing you act like a fool, there will be really fun." Minato put on a bored face. Is this crazy guy's mouth growing horns or what, talking so much? He didn't want to be here anymore and stood up to leave. Jun pulled out Minato's parents to tease him. Your old folks don't have any power either, right? So you're just a damn orphan, huh? I forgot, ha ha ha. The whole group burst out laughing, making Minato unable to stay silent anymore, even though Kusanagi Minato's parents were not his. But it was related to the pride of a man. Your old folks, do you know how ignorant you are? Minato calmly replied, but even that made the pufferfish Jun puff up his cheeks. What did you say, you punk? Don't lump me together with you. Jun immediately summoned his powerful magic circle, turning the whole room red with fire. The classmates looked at each other worriedly. Was he really going to use magic in class? Jun launched a fireball at Minato, wanting to kill him directly. Minato still stood there calmly. Although the other students were scared and ran away, Mizuha worriedly ran toward Minato. A big explosion with extremely high heat enveloped the whole room in an instant. Mizuha arrived too late and could only blame Jun for showing off his little magic without caring that other classmates could get hurt. Jun was scolded by the goddess, which annoyed him greatly. It's because that guy caused trouble, not my fault. A few seconds later, the fire went out, leaving only thick gray smoke, making it impossible to see anything. As the smoke cleared, a figure still stood inside. Minato, one hand in his pocket and the other holding his bag, was completely unharmed, looking at them calmly. He scratched his head, unsure if Jun was being praised or mocked. Not bad. Jun was terrified, as if he saw a ghost. He wasn't even scratched after taking that full hit from Minato. If it was just level 1 magic, the magic barrier would have been enough to block it. No need for other magic. Minato held back because he thought Jun was just a childish brat, but it seemed he hadn't seen the coffin yet to cry. Seeing Minato's current face, the three boys instinctively leaned on each other in fear. A strong blue flame rose from Minato's body, quickly engulfing the whole room in light. Everyone present was unable to move. They didn't know what kind of entity they were facing. Minato gradually moved toward Jun, who was trembling as if standing in the northern winter cold, his arm reaching out toward him. In his eyes, there wasn't a single spark of light. Jun's face was contorted, mouth agape, but not shouting. What was that noise just now? Did someone just use magic? A professor suddenly burst in after hearing the explosion caused by Jun. Minato withdrew his arm as the professor asked what was happening. Minato exhaled sharply. Then, with an innocent face, he replied that nothing had happened inside. Perhaps someone outside accidentally misdirected a magic spell. But the professor said that no magic club was active outside on campus right now. Minato then diverted attention by suggesting it seemed like someone was just trying out their magic, because mages love to show off their magic. So where did this smoke come from? The professor smelled something burnt in the room. Minato said it came from outside. Unexpectedly, the professor believed Minato, because he knew Minato wouldn't lie. But before leaving, the professor warned the students that he would find the culprit no matter what. All of you return to your seats. Minato cheerfully said goodbye to the professor, thinking to himself that he would have to create a fake scene to cover this up. After the professor left, the room fell into a suffocating atmosphere. Jun turned his back and ran away, gritting his teeth and cursing Minato silently in his mind. Minato also carried a heavy heart, even though they were just students. But at this rate, how could they fight monsters? Although natural disasters were gone, monsters still lurked around. So Minato decided to go survey the area. To see how things were that night in old Siberia, a ruined and wild place not yet restored, Minato used a magic circle to fly in the sky and stopped on an old building to observe. Then he accelerated but didn't sense any monsters nearby. Although everything looked desolate and ruined, it seemed the police had already cleaned up beforehand. Suddenly, Minato sensed the aura of a monster nearby. There were even signs of humans. He immediately rushed toward the source of the signal. At that moment, a girl was trembling, lying on the ground, facing a terrifying two-headed beast. Their mouths drooled, having starved for many years. At the life-or-death moment, Minato appeared just in time. The monster, very close, suddenly roared in pain. Minato had raised countless sharp stakes from the ground, piercing and crushing its body. That was enough to kill the huge beast many times his size. Minato turned to look at the girl on the ground. The badge on her clothes was from the magical police. Minato didn't want to get involved and just told her to be more careful next time. Before she could thank him, Minato had already flown away as if he had never appeared. The magical policewoman, after regaining her composure, didn't know who Minato was. He looked like a high-level mage, but she noticed Minato hadn't cast any spells. At that moment, Minato was gliding in the sky like skimming over water covering his face. It was a reasonable choice because he was a soul inhabiting Kusanagi, so he couldn't be too conspicuous. But today, Minato was disappointed once again. A magical police officer was almost killed by such a lousy monster. The level of the police had sharply declined. Minato could confirm that humanity nowadays couldn't even kill a rookie monster. Not only students and police, but it seemed mages in this era had also weakened a lot, compared to before, but Minato wasn't too upset. On the contrary, he felt happy that his power was still useful. Minato would use his magic to clean up the nearby monsters. They couldn't let them harm the innocent people here. The next day, as expected, the students had their magic power measured. In front of them was a bulky, huge machine that could measure both the amount and attribute of magic power. These were the two most important indicators for those who wanted to become professional mages in the future. Minato was stunned. Why was magic regressing more and more? Students might be excused, but even teachers couldn't measure it. The students' magic power was truly beyond words. Feeling magic power was the root of forming magic. Do you know that Mizuha suddenly started a conversation with Minato? Do you have time? Their conversation caused the whole class to whisper and gossip. Mizuha said this was the first time the two had a proper conversation. She introduced herself as the second daughter of a noble magical family. Noble mage Mizuha Zuka. Minato felt itchy not knowing how many times this had happened already. What the hell is a magical noble Zuka didn't expect Minato not to know that Mizuha is one of the four great families leading the mages. Minato didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Back then, none of these things existed. He hadn't even heard the name Mizuha. Moreover, Zuka's mana was not much for a family famous in the mage world. But this amount of mana is really too weak, meanwhile. Zuka still didn't understand why Minato behaved that way. She had started the conversation with him first, but Minato didn't even feel grateful, and Jun gritted his teeth. Ken on the side was jealous because Minato was approached by Zuka first. Minato scratched his head, going along with Zuka's wishes. What does a powerful family member like this lady want from me? Zuka really wanted to punch Minato in the face, but as a noble, she had to maintain her elegance. This attitude made Minato lose all patience. Zuka came because yesterday, Minato was still intact after taking Jun's full attack. There must be some reason. Zuka had just opened her mouth to say 3 words when the professor announced they were about to test Minato. Happily, this was a good excuse to avoid that girly girl. Jika was helpless but not angry because through the test she could see Minato's true strength. Next was Jun, whose face showed no trace of inferiority. Extremely arrogant, he unleashed a burst of mana that made the machine light up quickly. The number on the screen stopped at 1000. Jun screamed like a chimpanzee. Damn, even stronger than before, Minato thought. If that got 1000, then the evaluation standard hadn't changed. After 55, it was Zuka's turn. Equally confident as that Jun guy. She just lightly touched the machine and the number rose to 2000 water attribute. The professor opened his mouth in amazement, praising that the mana of both truly ranked at the top of this year's students. Surely these two would become outstanding mages in the class like an explosion before these two rising stars. Only Minato couldn't smile. Zuka is top-ranked with only 2000 mana. Compared to the amateurs, not much better. Zuka glanced at Minato, wondering if he felt ashamed looking at her result. Minato tried not to look into Zuka's challenging eyes. This girl was really annoying. Next was Minato's turn. The whole class knew he was a top student, but when it came to magic, he was always last. Jun still thought Minato had no talent. even though yesterday he was so scared of him he almost peed his pants. Zuko watched Minato's steps with wide eyes, firmly believing he couldn't be better than her. Minato didn't know what to do. In his previous life, he was too outstanding and a bit lonely. Maybe this time he would tone it down a bit, but thinking of a jerk and a girl. Looking down on him behind his back, Minato didn't want to be modest. He placed his hand down, releasing his abundant mana, going all out as long as this thing could withstand all his mana. Minato's mana even burst outside the classroom, awakening students in other buildings. Jika opened her eyes wide, not knowing what was happening. The number on the screen kept increasing non-stop. The stone was full of mana, even releasing a flash to the central pillar. A flash of light and a loud explosion echoed far. Sharp shards flew out, capable of killing a person at that speed. Minato used magic to block them, preventing anyone from getting hurt. He had only been serious for a few seconds, and this broken machine couldn't handle it. Moreover, no one here could sense his mana. Could these kids really become mages? The professor panicked, checking the surroundings to make sure no one was hurt. He even thought Minato was lucky to stand at the explosion's center unharmed. This was the first time the teacher witnessed the evaluation device explode. Maybe it had been broken before. But like this, we can't know Kusanagi's mana and attributes. Minato wondered if that mattered. It turned out the academy would divide groups for the practical class, but now they didn't know which group to put Minato in. So the professor assigned Minato to Jun's group. Jun glanced at his two subordinates with a sly smile. Of course, that was fine, sir. The professor was also very relieved to entrust Minato to Jun. Jun passed by Minato, trying to put on a villainous, despicable face to scare him. I'm looking forward to it, sir. The practice location was the old CBIA because monsters still inhabited the area. In places that had become ruins, CBIA was currently abandoned. Mages and police regularly patrolled to ensure monsters did not return around here. Therefore, the students of the academy are required to participate. More than half of the monsters here have already been cleared by the mages, so they can rest assured. Minato did not expect there to be a practical class as well. Well, reluctantly, the students could also defeat a few monsters, even working in groups. Last night, Minato already came here. But he felt something was strange. Minato was sure he had dealt with all the monsters here. Yet now he could still sense a few monsters around, and there was no sign of disaster. How could they still appear? The classmates were even betting among themselves on who would defeat more today. Minato felt worried for these carefree girls. The professor announced that the practical class had started. Minato was immediately pushed against the wall by Jun, who arrogantly said, "Hey, stay here and don't get in our way." "I'm being very kind, so don't beg or whine, got it?" Minato brushed the dust off his sleeve. "If you don't like me, just ignore me." Seeing Minato's rebuttal was spot on, Jun's face stiffened like a switch had been flipped. "Don't talk to me like we're equals, you bottom of society trash. So what if you're garbage? Mizuha is interested in you, though." Minato made a mocking face. Was this crazy guy picking a fight with him just over a girl? Suddenly, Minato understood and asked, "Oh, do you like Mizuha?" Jun's eyes were bloodshot with anger, but Minato didn't care. He sensed something approaching. Jun used magic again. Two henchmen behind also joined in. Minato told him not to do that. Jun thought Minato was begging him, but Minato just gently reminded him to look behind himself. Jun shouted, "You think I'd fall for your childish tricks?" Suddenly, a shadow enveloped the area, making Jun involuntarily turn around. A large, two-horned monster had appeared out of nowhere. The three brats shrank together, trembling and stammering, "What? Why is it here? Why is there a demon soldier here?" Facing a real monster, these three were just kids. Two subordinates begged, trembling as they acted. Though scared, one confidently took action. "Take this bastard." A fire-spitting worm burned the demon soldier's entire body. Seeing it didn't move, he thought he had succeeded. It was as easy as pie, but no, after the flames, the demon soldier's body had not a single scratch. Minato was not very surprised. How could a demon soldier be defeated by first-level magic? But Minato just stood watching the show. The demon soldier stepped toward them. Jun was so scared he sat down on the ground, eyes teary teeth, chattering, speechless. His pants soaked because he forgot to wear diapers today. The demon soldier charged at Jun, but stopped halfway when it saw Minato. A flood of bloody memories of comrades flashed through its mind. The demon soldier immediately retreated. Minato calmly stepped forward. Clearly, even a demon soldier could tell who was stronger among them. Right, it could sense the abundant mana from Minato. The demon soldier's arm trembled as it roared, summoning several magic circles. Minato raised his hand without chanting. "You can summon magic circles too. How can you beat it with first-level magic?" "We're going to die!" The kids behind whimpered in fear. At that moment, the demon soldier used second-level magic to create a stone wall. Huge rocks flew toward them. Jun closed his eyes, too scared to look. Minato smirked and used first-level magic. A rocket arrow, a stream of fire shot from his hand. Just watching you could tell it would engulf the tiny stone from the demon soldier. Sure enough, the stone was burned. Then the demon soldier exploded with a big blast, creating a strong wind that made Minato's cloak flutter. The worm opened its eyes. It wondered what the hell just happened. Minato just defeated that demon soldier and saved its life. Minato stepped toward the demon soldier's magic stone. Why was it here? Yesterday, he had hunted down every single one, yet it still appeared again. Unless this was a premonition of a disaster, the current situation seemed tenser than Minato had expected, recalling those tragic, deadly memories. Minato still couldn't help but blame himself, but even if a natural disaster happened again, he was determined to save everyone. Meanwhile, Jun's two subordinates looked at each other. He just defeated that demon soldier, right? Is he really Kusanagi from before? Jun suddenly punched the wall in anger. He had no face left if Zuka found out about this. Actually, right at this moment, Zuka was hiding behind a rock, witnessing Jun's wet pants episode, then back a few minutes earlier at another corner where students were confronting magical beasts. But they were just low-level magical beasts, and Zuka easily used first-level magic to eliminate them. The students outside who saw this scene immediately excitedly praised her. Amazing, truly Mizuha indeed. When Jika heard their compliments, she sighed helplessly. It was just a little, yet they were already staring in awe. These commoners are really only good at flattering. Anyway, she was a genius, so what could she do? But right at that moment, Zuka saw Jun's group dragging Minato away into a hidden corner. Remembering Minato being bullied, Zuka frowned and fell silent. Finally, she looked toward everyone and spoke. The rest is up to you guys. She quickly ran after the group. She couldn't just ignore it. So Zuka hid in a corner, quietly observing their group until she saw the demon soldiers appear. Zuka's expression instantly became panicked. This thing she was sure the group couldn't defeat. The more she thought, the more panicked she became. Zuka clenched her fists tightly. She had to do something. After all, she was a member of the Mizushima clan. Finally, Zuka ran out and shouted, "Everyone run immediately." But before she could finish, a streak of magic suddenly passed through her body. It stunned her. With a loud bang, smoke and fire exploded in front of her, filling the sky. When the smoke cleared, the final scene appeared clearly. Zuka saw Minato standing there proudly. She frowned in surprise. Was that Minato's magic? Zuka remembered he used to be shy and had no magical talent at all, but now he was like a completely different person. She also didn't hear any incantation from Minato. Did he cast magic without chanting? Moreover, he easily defeated that demon soldier with just first-level magic. The power of a demon is determined by the number of magic stones it holds. This is also the principle forming their ranks. Ordinary magical beasts are rank 6. Demon soldiers are rank 5, one rank higher is demon commanders at rank 4, demon generals at rank 3, higher still is rank 2, the demon king, and at the highest position is the demon lord. The rank determines the damage each demon can inflict. Every modern mage knows this. At least third-level magic is needed to defeat a demon soldier. So how could Minato's first-level magic do it? Zuka really couldn't understand. While she was confused, Minato slowly stepped toward where she was hiding. Zuka was startled and quickly hid deeper inside, but she soon reacted. Why should she hide like this when Minato had walked a bit away? Zuka peeked out to look after him. Unfortunately, Minato noticed her. He smirked and said, "Sneaking a peek at others seems to be some kind of fun for you, huh?" Zuka was stunned. She frowned and asked, "How did you know?" Minato shrugged indifferently and replied, "If you call yourself a mage, not knowing would be strange." Yet after Minato said that, Zuka was even more confused. Seeing her reaction, Minato sighed helplessly. "You guys can't sense magic, right?" Then he turned and left, leaving Zuka standing there confused. When she recovered, she ran after Minato's back and hurriedly called out, "Wait, what's going on?" "Explain it." Unfortunately, he had disappeared without a trace. There was no one left in front of her. The person she needed to find was now standing on the rooftop of a nearby building. Minato saw her looking for him and couldn't help but sigh. He glanced around and whispered, "Let's just take a look once to be sure." Then Minato used his magic power to check the surroundings. There were no more demon soldiers, but quite a few magical beasts remained here. This situation really troubled him. Even Jun, considered an outstanding student, was so scared he almost soiled himself. The other students would surely struggle even more. Minato frowned thoughtfully. Maybe he should lend them a hand. His barrier would cover the entire area around the house. Without hesitation, Minato quickly summoned magic power into both hands. In an instant, 2 streams of magic appeared in the air and then started rushing forward. Before long, they covered the entire house. Garcia looked at the magic beams in the air. Jun's group was immediately amazed and confused, not knowing what they were. Zuka was no exception. She frowned and muttered, "Is that magic versatile magic?" Meanwhile, in another corner, a group of magical beasts surrounded 2 academy students. Their numbers were so many it terrified them. Just then, a magical beast lunged at a pink-haired female student. Her face showed panic. She couldn't do anything. In that moment, the situation was extremely critical. A sudden magical beam appeared and directly tore apart the body of the attacking demon beast. The pink-haired female student, having just experienced a life-or-death moment, was so scared that her legs went weak and she collapsed to the ground. The male student hurried over, anxiously asking if he was okay. "Are you okay?" at the same time on the rooftop of a building. Minato looked down from above, nodded with satisfaction. Good slaughtering them like this is also entertaining. But very quickly he realized a problem with his magic power. Sweat covered Minato's forehead because his magic not only killed the demon beasts, but also tore their bodies into many pieces. In just an instant, fragments of the demon beasts' bodies were scattered everywhere. Seeing this scene, Minato couldn't help but sigh helplessly. "I might have gone a bit too far, huh? In the end, I cleaned up most of them. At this rate, how can the practice class continue next time I have to restrain myself a bit?" After a moment of silence, Minato used magic to jump down from above. He glanced around for a long time before finally nodding in satisfaction. "Around here should be fine." After checking everything was okay, Minato found a hidden corner to land. Although he didn't need to hide his skills too much, being too conspicuous was also troublesome. Thinking this, he walked toward the other students. The instructor was checking the bodies of the demon beasts. After a while, he murmured suspiciously, "Why are there still so many demon beasts left? Their entire pack should have been wiped out. To only kill this many with one strike, the person who did it must be a professional mage. Unknown attribute magic deploying countless magic bullets like this can only be unknown attribute magic." He's never seen anyone like this before. Without this person, the situation would have long been out of the instructor's control. Shooting many magic bullets at once is no problem, but the notable thing here is that there are more than 6 bullets. There's no way a student could have done that. While the instructor was thinking, a student couldn't hold back dissatisfaction and questioned, "Why are there still so many demon beasts left, sir?" "We almost died, sir. It's your fault." The instructor did not deny responsibility and bowed his head to admit fault. He pressed his lips and explained, "I was informed that the police had cleaned up the entire pack. You should have confirmed again with the school. I truly apologize for putting you all in danger just now." Hearing this, the students didn't know what to say. Everyone's expression was helpless. The female student, who was just saved, cautiously asked, "Did someone come to save us, sir?" The instructor shook his head slightly and replied, "I don't know." The female student sighed helplessly. "I just want to thank that person. I just want to thank that person." The instructor really didn't know who it was. It definitely couldn't be the police or professional mages. Could it be illegal mages? But he could not deny the fact that this person just saved his students. From the bottom of his heart, he was very grateful to this anonymous mage. Minato, the anonymous mage in the instructor's thoughts, was standing far away, just smiling silently without saying a word. After escaping danger, the students finally regained their composure and began whispering about the magic they had just seen. Minato looked around at everyone. It seemed everyone was okay. Then he felt relieved at the same time. A vicious gaze was staring at him. It was Jun's group. These brats had just experienced life and death, but still hadn't matured. Minato sighed helplessly. On the other side, Zuko was silently observing Minato. He had defeated a demon soldier with just level 1 magic plus that infinite-type magic. How could it be him? But fire magic and attributeless magic, she thought no student was skilled enough to use both magic attributes simultaneously, much less him. Thinking this, Zuko felt a little relieved. She was just overthinking. No way someone like that could use 2 attributes at the same time. The user of the attribute-confirmed magic must be someone else. But even so, it didn't rule out the fact that Minato had destroyed a demon soldier. She was thinking about what exactly he was. Minato sensed Zuka's gaze on him but didn't react. At this moment, 2 guys beside Jun regained their composure. One of them murmured in amazement, "That thing that looked like a laser beam was made by Kusanagi." The other shook his head to deny. "That can't be true." However, that guy still trusted his guess and hastily said he had defeated the demon soldier. These words made Cho Jun angry. His face turned as black as a pot bottom. He gritted his teeth and cursed, "Shut your mouth, I'll kill you right now." The other 2 wisely kept quiet, not daring to say anything more. Jun's eyes were extremely fierce as he frantically shouted, "No way that filthy little fly could be that strong. There must be something shady going on." The 2 didn't dare to argue and quickly agreed, "It's really strange, isn't he just a coward?" Jun heard this and was satisfied, snorting coldly. That damn dog must be playing tricks. You dare to make a joke out of me, I'll expose his true character. After a while, the school day finally ended, and Minato returned home as usual. But he was blocked by a group of students, making him a bit confused. The leader was the brat Jun, who looked at him coldly and spoke. "I've been waiting for you this whole time." Minato was really helpless with these brats. He sighed and opened his mouth. "You guys are thick-headed, huh? Instead of running around telling your parents, why not use that time to learn magic? That would be more useful." These words triggered Jun's rage. He shouted fiercely, "You have no right to speak, you lying bastard!" Minato was a bit puzzled, wondering what this meant, and snorted lightly. Jun angrily shouted, "Stop pretending to be stupid. What kind of dog are you to be able to use that kind of magic? You must be up to something behind my back." Minato looked at him with full confusion. He basically didn't understand what this guy was babbling about. Seeing Minato not respond, Jun coldly ordered, "Follow me. I won't let your little rat run away from here." Then the others came forward to stand behind him. Truly degenerate, always playing in packs. Minato looked at the group of brats in front of him, indifferently shrugged with contempt, and said, "Why would I need to run?" Jun was provoked by his attitude and angrily shouted, "Stop babbling, you bastard! You can't even use magic here, right?" As soon as he finished speaking, he clenched his fist and lunged forward. Jun's punch quickly came close to Minato's face, but he didn't react at all. The people following him also quickly rushed up, continuously throwing punches. Jun was extremely arrogant and laughed, "No magic, what can you even do? Even if you lick my shoes now, I won't forgive you. Die, Kusanagi." The more he spoke, the more inhuman his smile became, but unfortunately Minato didn't even flinch. Not even a single hair on Minato was touched. Minato calmly stood there with eyes full of contempt. Their cat-like claws couldn't even touch him. Minato's magic was protecting him. He could be hit all night and still be fine, but these flies were too annoying. Minato thought to himself that he might as well just take the punches and be done with it, so he sat down pretending to be hit. At that moment, a loud shout suddenly rang out. "What the hell are you guys doing?" The group immediately startled and looked back to see Zuka standing behind them. Jun's face instantly turned ugly. His lips trembled as he muttered. Afraid Zuka would think badly of him, Jun hurriedly explained, "No, we're just joking around." Zuka coldly said, "I know you all are ganging up to bully Kusanagi. You wear the Magic Academy uniform but become bullies. Aren't you ashamed of your conscience?" Hearing this, Jun's group immediately looked ugly. Jun's face was as black as a pot bottom. He gritted his teeth and stared at Minato. It was all because of him that Zuka now looked down on him. "I'll step in like this." While Jun was thinking, Zuka walked over and pulled Minato's hand, saying, "Let's get out of here, Kusanagi." The sight of their hands clasped together caught Jun's eye. Jun's anger reached its peak. In his heart, he started cursing Minato's ancestors for 18 generations. Seeing Jun's expression, his two subordinates were scared stiff. They didn't dare to step forward to advise him. Finally, Jun couldn't hold it anymore and exploded, "Damn you, Kusanagi!" Minato sighed helplessly, thinking this guy is like super glue, sticking tight and not letting go. At that moment, Jun was extremely furious. He summoned magic in his hand and shouted fiercely, "You damn dog, I have to kill you!" Seeing this, Zuka panicked and shouted, "Tanado, what are you doing?" But Jun had already gone mad. He and his gang simultaneously launched magic attacks towards Minato Zuka more and more urgently. She hurriedly shouted a warning that it was very dangerous, just as an explosion sounded in front of the two of them. Smoke and fire filled the sky, causing Chozuka to instinctively cover her eyes, thinking Minato had been buried in the sea of flames. Jun immediately laughed smugly, saying, "Even if you cheat 10 more times, you still can't save yourself." The sons of his two henchmen, on the other hand, were very scared and panicked, muttering, "Oh my god, this is really bad. No joke, is he really dead?" With a cold laugh, Jun arrogantly said, "You fools, what are you scared of? We just accidentally used magic outside the school and lost control a bit." But Kusanagi happened to be standing right in the path of the flying magic, that's all. Just then, while he was feeling smug, a deep voice suddenly sounded from within the smoke. "You guys have gone a bit too far." This made Jun startled and look back. A figure slowly stepped out from the hazy smoke. Minato was unharmed, standing there with cold eyes looking at the two brats in front of him, speaking in a cold tone. "I thought you guys were just a bunch of kids, so I let it slide. Indeed, all stupidity must be paid for with death. It's time for me to teach you a lesson." Seeing this scene, Jun's face immediately turned ugly. He panicked and shouted, "You're still alive! You took all that magic and you're still alive!" Even Zuka behind was equally shocked, still not fully recovered. Minato lazily refused to explain to them and coldly said, "Only me, no problem. Why did you drag Zuka into this? You're really rotten, kid." Aggressively biting his lip, trembling and unwilling, he shouted loudly, "You two are the ones at fault! How dare you make a joke out of me! We will attack until you two become dry skeletons." As soon as he finished speaking, magic appeared in his hand again. Minato was not startled. Calmly snapping his fingers, only a small amount of magic he summoned appeared a miniature magic circle in front of him. Jun immediately laughed scornfully. "Ha ha, what kind of magic is that, like a grasshopper kicking a cart? This time you're definitely dead." Immediately, they all launched attacks towards Minato again, but Minato remained very calm, muttering, "Drain the magic." As soon as he finished speaking, suddenly vines wrapped in magic appeared in front of him. They looked like giant snakes, continuously twisting in the air, rushing straight towards the brats. Jun wasted no time and tightly wrapped them up, causing Cho and the others to panic and shout, "What the hell is this? Let go!" "I'm done," but it didn't last long. They deflated like popped balloons, sitting on the ground with no strength left. Seeing this, Minato retracted his vines. Without the vines to support them, Jin's group fell face down on the ground. Minato was a bit surprised. He only drained a little magic, yet everyone fell over like that already. This should be enough to teach them a lesson, right? Witnessing this, Zuka was even more shocked. What kind of magic was that? What just happened? Why are Jun and the others unconscious? While she was thinking, Minato grabbed his bag and prepared to leave. Seeing this scene, Zuka hurriedly shouted to stop him. "Wait a moment!" She repeatedly asked Minato, "What kind of magic was that? What just happened?" He wasn't supposed to be able to use magic so skillfully. Zuka kept bombarding Minato with questions, as if interrogating him, making Minato feel she was really annoying. He coldly snorted and said, "Instead of asking me so persistently, shouldn't you say something else?" Zuka knew what Minato meant and stubbornly turned her head away. "I'll admit you because you just saved me. Thanks, okay. Now answer me." Before she finished speaking, the person in front of her disappeared without a trace. Jika shouted in dissatisfaction, "Where did he disappear to again?" That night in old Siberia, a rather gloomy place, a figure used magic to swiftly glide like the wind across the dark sky, then quickly descended onto a high-rise building inside the city. This person was none other than Minato, disguised but still wearing his familiar hoodie. Minato used magic to check around because he felt uneasy. Just as he thought he had killed all the monsters in the afternoon, but this place was still full of monsters. Is this a bad sign or not? If it were just a few, Minato alone could handle it, but he could also sense them in other places. Perhaps this was too difficult for the police. Although the magic police weren't very good, he couldn't kill all the monsters in Japan. Alone, Minato thought he needed to make a plan for this matter. After a moment of thinking, Minato decided to first eliminate the monsters around here. He needed to be careful not to. Prominently thinking, Minato used magic to jump down below and began to take action to kill the magical beasts. The wild magical beams striking from the sky caused the magical beasts to die like flies. At that moment below the street, there was a drunk ghost staggering as he walked, and he did not notice that behind him was a magical beast. Immediately, the beast attacked the man. In a life-or-death situation, Minato appeared and swiftly slashed it to death with the speed of the wind. Feeling something brush past him, the drunk man turned his head to look back. But seeing no one, he thought he was hallucinating. Actually, Minato had quickly hidden to the side. The drunk man then continued on his way home. Minato confirmed that he was safe before leaving the place. It was just that he didn't notice that from afar someone had recorded the entire scene. He also posted it on social media with a beaming, proud smile. If this didn't go viral, it would truly be strange. The next morning, in the principal's office of the Magic Academy, another teacher was also present. He looked at the students before him and spoke in a serious tone. "We have been informed that some students were seen using magic outside the school grounds. If this is true, the school must suspend those students." The students referred to were Minato and Juka, as well as Jun's group, who were also called in. Upon hearing this, Jun immediately protested before the teacher. "What do you mean? We didn't use magic. Kusanagi came to provoke us." Minato was truly helpless before this shamelessness. This guy lies without blinking, really impressive. I guess you can't stay silent anymore. Even though implicated, he still had to explain, but before Minato could do anything, a loud shout rang out, accusing them of lying, shocking both him and Jun's group. The one who spoke was none other than Juka. She fiercely pointed at Jun and accused Kusanagi of being bullied by Tadano and his friends, saying Tadano's side used magic first. Hearing this, the teacher frowned and asked, "So does that mean Kusanagi also used magic?" Juka, dissatisfied, retorted, "That was self-defense. He did nothing wrong." Minato was a bit surprised. This girl was quite righteous. She didn't lie a single word. But Jun's shamelessness must be 8 times thicker than concrete. Despite this, he stubbornly denied, "We didn't do anything wrong." Juka grew even more resentful and scolded him. "Shut your damn mouth! What kind of person bullies others and then blames them? Are you numb to shame? Jun was scolded like a dog, but still argued loudly that Kusanagi didn't deserve to be here. I'm just cleaning up the trash. Juka glared at him with full dissatisfaction. You're the one who doesn't deserve to be here. Jun protested. I'm at the top of the class. I'm the only one who can compare to you, not that cheap Kusanagi guy. Juka didn't take these words well. Annoyed, she scolded him for talking nonsense. Jun still refused to yield and stepped forward firmly, saying, Open your eyes and don't defend that guy. Look at me become my woman. When Jun said this, his eyes were full of sincerity, but unfortunately Juka ignored that sincerity, snorting coldly with disdain, dream on, kid. In an instant, Jun felt like he was pushed into an ice chamber, stiff and stuck. That wasn't enough. Juka also gave the reason for rejecting him. You're a bully who's too violent, which made him so angry he fainted. Minato saw this scene and couldn't help but sigh, knowing Jun deserved it. But this was too cruel. At that moment, the principal spoke again. It seems this is Tadano and his friend's fault, and Kusanagi was only defending himself. We do not tolerate those who use magic for personal grudges. Each of you will be expelled. Jun's two henchmen panicked and explained, No, please, we only follow Jun's orders. The principal didn't want to hear it. Minato and Juka returned to class. The two immediately agreed to leave the office. Juka had left the room but still felt dissatisfied, constantly cursing that guy. It's been a long time since someone made me this angry. Minato walked beside her suspiciously, asking what would happen now that they had been expelled. Zuka slightly curled her lips and said indifferently that they would no longer be able to become mages. It's obvious, she said, then suddenly turned her head and glared at Minato fiercely. You have to stand up for yourself. Minato was a bit reluctant. He had intended to do so, but she had already done it for him. Seeing that he didn't respond, Zuka suddenly became anxious. Minato furrowed his brows, thinking for a long time. Suddenly silent, he opened his mouth and recalled, How many times have you tried to save me? In class, when Minato was dragged into a fight, Zuka stood up to help. And this time, too, she stood up to testify for him. Thinking of this, Minato smiled at her. You're really kind. Minato's words made Chozuka blush deeply. She hurriedly ran off, saying, Be quiet, let me see, I'm going now. Minato watched her retreating figure, smiling softly. So cute. At that moment, he suddenly remembered something. Kusanagi Minato was already dead. And Ichikami Minato was the reincarnation. That kid was bullied to death, right? It was just a normal car accident. Minato didn't know, but surely they were guilty. Hopefully, this matter would be avenged. At the same time, two more students appeared in the principal's office. Along with that, the clear voice of a girl said, So some students use magic outside the school, and some students were affected. The principal nodded slightly in response. That's right, but it didn't endanger the public. The girl heard this and asked suspiciously, Then why did you call me here, teacher? The principal calmly replied, The student affected is Mizuha Zuka. I want you to handle her. After a moment, the girl said, I understand. Thank you for telling me, she said, then turned to leave. The principal didn't stop her and casually suggested, Please send my regards to your father. The girl didn't turn back and calmly replied, Don't worry, my father will still invest in the school. The two quickly walked out into the hallway. The male student beside the girl finally spoke. If what the teacher said is true, then this Kusanagi guy must be very strong. The girl lowered her voice and mumbled, Fighting many mages at once, I almost can't. He won't win unless the power gap is huge. Do you think that guy is stronger than the two of us? They continued walking and talking. Other students who saw them pass by their classroom admired them and looked back. The two of them basically didn't care. The girl's voice became serious. First, we have to confirm the ability of student Kusanagi Minato. Then I will decide whether to expel my little sister or not. This girl was Zuka's older sister Mizuharuka, a third-year student in Class S. The male student beside her was Katsuragi Ryuji, also a third-year student in Class S. He nodded and smiled. Sounds good. Inside the classroom, Minato was lying on the desk, constantly complaining. Now that everything had calmed down, he had lost all motivation. The shout of a student nearby caught his attention. Looks so cool, is he a dark mage? I know him. Minato frowned suspiciously. Dark mages are a noble clan, right? But this has nothing to do with you. He sighed in frustration. While Minato was sighing, a teacher entered from outside and called loudly, Hey, Kusanagi. And so after that, Minato and several other students followed the teacher to the examination room. Students who hadn't been tested before would be tested now. Zuka was also present. She squinted at Minato, thinking this time she would discover his true ability. Then suddenly she widened her eyes in surprise because she saw Ruka and Ryuji were also there. Worry appeared in Ruka's eyes. Why was her sister here? Regardless, the test began. After a while, it was Minato's turn. He hesitated before the magic measurement device, furrowing his brows thoughtfully. Last time, he had even blown up the machine. So this time, he thought he had to hold back a little. Minato summoned a small amount of magic power into his palm, then placed his hand on the testing machine, controlling his magic at the lowest level. This made him sweat. The number on the magic measurement device quickly climbed. After a while, Minato withdrew his hand, propping his head on his arms and panting heavily. The instructor asked suspiciously, "Are you okay?" He shook his head slightly to indicate he was fine. The instructor glanced at the number again. The testing machine returned the result. Hesitating, he said, "It seems we have the final result. The attribute of Kusanagi Minato is none." Zuka heard this result, her eyes full of disbelief. Ruka and Ryuji, on the other hand, were not surprised, as if they believed Minato wasn't that strong. But the surprise was yet to come. When Minato's mana level was only at 100, the students present immediately whispered among themselves that our generation was definitely the lowest. But not being able to measure the attribute is also considered rare. Isn't that right, Ryuji? Hearing the chatter, he couldn't help but sigh. Ruka, a bit impatient, immediately turned and left. "Let's go, we're done here." The two quickly left, and mocking laughter immediately rang out, reassessing him and making him sweat profusely. If the mana is weak, then there's nothing to do about it. The instructor, fearing Minato would be upset, went over to pat his shoulder and comfort him. "Don't overthink it, Kusanagi. The amount of mana you have doesn't define your entire being." The only person who didn't believe this result was Juka. Something felt off. Minato should have been more than capable of defeating even demon soldiers. He should have been able to use both fire and inert attributes. She had never heard of anything like adjusting the amount of mana emitted from oneself. What the hell did Minato just do? Contrary to everyone's reaction, Minato was very satisfied with the result. "It's excellent, just as I wanted. Minato only needed to precisely control a certain amount of mana. Is that so? I'm exhausted and out of breath already?" Fortunately, it went smoothly and fooled everyone. A moment later in the hallway, Minato walked alongside Zuka, asking, "Were you also at the evaluation, Mizuha?" Zuka nodded slightly and replied, "I was just a little curious, but not for long." In front of the two, someone blocked their way, Ruka and Ryuji. Minato, unfamiliar with them, muttered anxiously, "Who are they?" Ruka immediately introduced herself. "I am the eldest daughter of the Mizuha family, Mizuha Ruka. This is Kasuragi Ryuji. Both are third-year students." Minato frowned, suspicious and hesitant. "Oh, what do you want from me? I have no interest in you anymore," Ruka said coldly, then lifted her foot to walk forward. Seeing this, Zuka immediately became worried. Her body trembled reflexively. Ruka approached Juka and coldly said, "You are nothing compared to those who break the rules, right?" Juka bowed her head slightly, avoiding eye contact with her sister. Ruka was not easily satisfied and continued, "I also heard you were saved by a mana demon whose power barely reached 100. Is that true?" Juka hesitated for a long moment before softly answering, "That is true." Hearing this confirmation, Ruka immediately shouted, "Quit school, Juka!" Juka, dissatisfied, asked, "Why should I do that?" Ruka sneered coldly, "Have you ever beaten me?" "Even once." Ruka was stunned upon hearing this. That's right. Whether in academic, sports, martial arts training, or even magic use, Juka has never surpassed her sister. Ruka stepped closer to Juka and sternly said, "You are not fit to become a mage. I alone am enough." The more Juka heard, the worse her expression became. She wanted to argue but couldn't form the words. Ruka did not relent and continued, "All you need to do is obey me. Leave here and find some random school to attend." Juka trembled slightly, tears welling in her eyes. She clearly wanted to resist but lacked the courage. Seeing her silent, Ruka asked again, "Do you understand?" Juka clenched her fists, struggling internally. After a while, she accepted and was about to agree when Minato interrupted, "Isn't that a bit rude?" Ruka glanced at him coldly and asked, "What did you just say?" Minato, unafraid, calmly replied, "You keep talking without listening to what the other person wants to say. If that's not rude, then I don't know what is." Ruka snorted coldly and said indifferently, "This is a private family matter. Outsiders like you should not interfere." Minato smirked and said, "You call that talking? You're giving orders to your sister!" This made Ruka angry, and she shouted, "What did you just say, you rotten brat?" Minato calmly faced her and said, "Forcing others to do things against their will is taboo and must not be done. It's like telling someone to give up on their dreams." Ruka still didn't think she was wrong and coldly said, "My sister doesn't have what it takes to be a mage. She has never beaten me once." Yuka stood beside her, her face full of sorrow. Just as Ruka said, she was nothing. All along, she had deluded herself into thinking she was a genius. and has enough qualities to become a genius while she has never beaten her sister even once. But when Zuka was desperate, Minato confidently spoke up. He has beaten your sister. This statement made Zuka unable to believe it. Even Ruka couldn't believe it. If you mumble that you can beat me then? Chuckling softly, Minato calmly continued, of course not possible at the moment. Ruka glanced at him with disdain, pouting, knowing that was true. Then how about a 2v2 practice match in 2 weeks? Hearing this, Minato couldn't help but question back 2v2. Thinking he was scared. Ruka immediately sneered. Just a moment ago you were spouting nonsense, and now you're scared and running away. Smirking coldly, Minato curled his lips and said, nonsense. I will also join the fight, senior. What about you? Saying that, he glanced at Ruka standing beside him. Hearing this proposal, Zuka hesitated a bit, still undecided, struggling with her thoughts. In the end, should I give up my dream or try to stand up and fight once more? After a moment of silence, she finally answered fiercely, I will also participate. Minato smiled satisfactorily, then said, so it's decided. He glanced at Zuka and smiled. If we win, you can't mention that matter again. Ruka casually accepted and proposed if we win, Zuka must leave here. I won't go easy on you. Get ready to face reality, she said, and then turned to leave. Ryuji quickly followed, but before leaving, he kindly waved goodbye to the two. A while later, on the academy building rooftop, Minato and Zuka were there. Suddenly, Zuka spoke up, Kusanagi. I want to ask you for a favor. Please teach me magic. Hearing this, Minato finally breathed a sigh of relief. No wonder you were suddenly called to the rooftop. Thinking this, Minato slowly said, I am just a weak mage with magic power not exceeding 100. Are you sure you want someone like me to tutor you? Calmly nodding, Zuka firmly said, I know you are hiding your true strength. You must be much stronger than me. Minato was a bit surprised to hear this. But Zuka, on the opposite side, continued. You have to find a way to become stronger. That's why I said I can beat my sister, right? Minato sighed helplessly. Everyone wants something that makes things complicated. That's why you urged Zuka to propose a practice match, but you can't just say it so bluntly. Seeing he didn't answer, Zuka immediately bowed to him and pleaded, please, Minato. Having no other choice, he could only agree, all right. In an instant, Zuka happily exclaimed, are you sure? Minato nodded slightly and reminded, but you must follow everything I say. And don't quit halfway? Zuka agreed without hesitation, sure, of course. Seeing her reaction, Minato couldn't help but smile. Who could refuse such a plea? Besides, from now on, you need to prepare a bit more teaching. A mage shouldn't be that bad, right? Thinking this, Minato slowly said, then we'll start today. Before he finished about the training place, Zuka cautiously suggested, can we go to my place? So that afternoon, Zuka took Minato to her home, a villa. Upon arrival, Minato couldn't help but admire such a huge villa. Zuka felt it was no big deal. She said casually, my father is a noble mage, so this is normal. Thinking back, this was the first time she invited a boy to her house. Minato wondered if it was strange to be invited here, but she had no weird intentions. The more she thought about it, the more embarrassed Zuka became, not daring to look Minato in the eye. At this moment, Minato spoke up, suggesting to start right away. Hearing him call her name, Zuka immediately panicked and exclaimed, why are you calling me by my name? Minato felt it was no problem and said casually, since your sister is Mizuha, how else can I tell who I'm calling? Zuka realized she was overthinking. Seeing her reaction, Minato asked again, if you don't like it, what do you want me to call you? Zuka shook her head slightly and replied, no need, just call me Zuka. Seeing no problem, Minato proposed, then let's begin. First, I want to ask you, what exactly is magic power? Hearing the question, Zuka confidently answered, easy. It is the energy inside the body that forms the basis for magic. Minato did not say whether it was right or wrong and continued to ask. Then what about the Zuka spell? Calmly, she replied, it is a type of program that helps convert magical power into magic. Minato asked again, so can the magical power be increased? Zuka confidently shook her head and said no. The limited amount of magical power of a mage is predetermined at birth. At a certain age, the amount of magical power will no longer increase. After answering, she smiled smugly and said, ha, how about that? I answered perfectly, didn't I? All wrong. Minato snorted coldly and said indifferently. Zuka was immediately shocked and couldn't believe it, looking at Minato. Reluctantly, he sighed. How could a modern mage be so naive? What happened 50 years ago? Having no other choice, he patiently explained. First, magical power is not only inside the body, but also exists around us. The spell is simply a tool to support your magic. And it is completely possible to actively increase the amount of magical power. Jika was amazed and exclaimed that those things are impossible. If so, wouldn't all magic academies be useless? Indifferently, shrugging, Minato said, you don't need to believe it now. I will simply teach you about the 3 things I just mentioned. Sit down. Juka obeyed and sat cross-legged on the ground. Minato casually said, I will transmit magic into you. Notify me when you feel it. Juka suspiciously asked, "Can you really sense magical power?" Minato calmly replied, "If you can't do that, you won't get stronger. Close your eyes. Here we go." As soon as he finished speaking, Minato placed his hand on Juka's back and began transmitting magic into her body. However, Zuka still showed no reaction. Minato increased the amount of magic transmitted. He thought Zuka still couldn't feel anything, but Zuka suddenly shouted, "My back is heating up. I feel something." Hearing this, Minato withdrew his hand and sighed. That was just enjoying basic magical power. Zuka looked at him intently and murmured in confusion, "So this is what you meant by feeling magical power." Calmly nodding, Minato said, "Right, remember this feeling. If you can feel it, you will recognize it and can find sources of magical power in nature to target." Jika winked and said, Hey, I am also a daughter of the Mizuhara family, you know. I can do it right away, watch me." Minato widened his eyes in disdain. "You just discovered it after all that magic I gave you." It seemed that Jika really had no talent to become a mage. A week later, still at Jika's mansion, just as Minato predicted, Jika was very desperate and shouted, "I can't do it." Minato was also helpless. "It's been a week and you've practiced a lot, but this girl is slow to understand. Even so, the competition is coming soon." Thinking of this, he could only suggest, "Then I will transmit magical power to you one more time." Saying that, Minato placed his hand on Juka's back and transmitted magic into her body. After a while, Minato spoke, "All right, open your eyes." Juka obeyed and slowly opened her eyes. In an instant, her face was full of surprise. She joyfully exclaimed, "I see it. So this is what magical power looks like." Seeing the magical power around her hands, Zuka was even more amazed. "Amazing! Am I really seeing magical power? Wait, if so, can you now see Minato's magical power?" Thinking that Zuka glanced at Minato, but saw nothing, making her a bit surprised. Minato, not knowing what she was thinking, praised, "Well done." Zuka, pleased with the compliment, smiled and said, "Just normal." Minato refused to give his opinion and said casually, "Now you have felt magical power. At the stage of controlling magical power, I tell you to use magic with just enough magical power. Ignore unnecessary things and focus only on effectiveness. Use magical power to the limit. After exhausting it, when it recovers, your magical power will increase." Minato also told her that once she could feel magical power, she could maximize her magical power. Zuka was increasingly surprised. Seeing her reaction, Minato sighed and asked, "Is it different from the basic knowledge you learned at school?" "No, I don't believe it, and that's okay." "I believe it." But before he finished, Juka firmly said, "I have no more doubts about you." Smiling unconsciously, Minato excitedly suggested, "Then let's move on to the next stage." Step back a bit, Juka practiced real combat. As soon as he finished speaking, he took off his outer jacket and threw it to the ground. Jika was also very excited and immediately responded, "I also want to witness your true ability." Immediately after, she quickly summoned her magic, which was level 1 water wave magic, a raging wave rushing towards Minato. Unfortunately, he just casually raised his hand. A protective barrier appeared blocking the water wave. Seeing this scene, Zuka immediately exclaimed in surprise he blocked it already. At this moment, Minato slowly spoke, "Level 1 non-elemental magic shield. If you can't break through this, then don't even talk about injuring Zuka." Aggressively biting her lip, Zuka cast ice bullet magic quickly towards Minato, but he just stood there. The protective barrier helped him block it. Minato calmly reminded her that you have to move when using magic. Standing still when facing a mage is like looking for death. Zuka was angered by his words again and cast magic, but soon she ran out of mana and collapsed on the ground. Minato walked over and sat beside her. He sighed and said she was wasting too much mana uselessly. "If you can control your mana, you wouldn't even need to use incantations. You can use magic as long as you still have mana. Watch this." As soon as he finished speaking, Minato cast magic. A fireball appeared and quickly rushed toward the straw dummy in front, but it was unharmed. He slowly opened his mouth and said, "This is your magic." Then Minato increased the mana in his palm again, still a fireball but stronger, burning the dummy in front. At this moment, he continued speaking. "And this is mine." Jika, who had been observing nearby for a while, finally asked suspiciously, "Is my mana dispersed?" Minato nodded slightly and replied, "Exactly, completely. You can cast magic without incantations as long as you can control your mana." Jika frowned and muttered, "In other words, you don't need to read the incantation anymore. Can you understand that?" Minato slowly said, "Now you have to learn how to shorten the incantation. Once you control your mana, you don't need it anymore. Shortening the incantation will be more advantageous in real combat. And then, you won't waste mana on those incantation phrases anymore." Hearing this, Zuka frowned and muttered, "So it means it will make my magic stronger, right?" Minato nodded affirmatively. Then he suggested starting over. Zuka was startled so soon. Minato closed his eyes and smiled, saying, "No, otherwise it wouldn't mean anything. Practice as if your life depends on it. Let's go." Hearing this, Zuka suddenly felt uneasy. A few hours later, Zuka was exhausted and lying on the ground. Minato sat beside her and worriedly asked, "Are you still alive? From now on, we'll only train like this." By evening, Minato was wandering around the city as usual. This time it was Harajuku. He scanned the mana around to check, and as he expected, this place was also full of monsters. Although he had continuously eliminated them, the number still didn't decrease at all. What the heck is going on here? At that moment, Minato suddenly sensed something. In the distance, a child was cornered by a beast against the wall. He hurried over. Without hesitation, he killed the beast. Minato glanced at the child and asked with concern, "Hey, are you okay?" But the child didn't answer and raised a camera to take a picture of him. Unfortunately, Minato was faster and used magic to escape, instantly disappearing to a safe place. Minato sighed in relief, thinking shamelessly taking pictures without even a thank you. What's wrong with humans these days? Next time I'll have to get a mask. Then he turned and went back home. The next afternoon after school, Minato and Zuka returned to the villa and continued training. As usual, Zuka was the first to fall, lying on the ground, panting heavily. Minato stood beside her helplessly. Only a few days left until the sparring match. She was gradually improving, but still couldn't compare to Ruka in any aspect. No way. Ruka would have a chance to win if things kept going like this. Thinking of this, he suddenly said sometimes giving up is also an option. Hearing this, Zuka lowered her head but soon stood up and whispered, "I'm always compared to my sister. I can't beat her in any field. I have been forced to give up too many things already." But magic is the only thing she refuses to give up. Minato squinted at her and said without hesitation, "But like this, you won't be able to win." Zuka didn't give up and suggested training harder. Minato smiled unconsciously, raising his eyebrows, and said there would be no mercy. Hearing that, Zuka also got excited and spoke up that she wouldn't give up, so after that, Minato taught Zuka more, and the two kept sparring continuously until Zuka was exhausted and gasping for breath before stopping. A few days later, Zuka finally managed to hold her ground after a long time. Minato was very pleased and smiled, saying, "You passed." Zuka immediately happily exclaimed, "I finally did it." Minato also praised, "Well done, Zuka." Zuka was very proud to be praised. All her efforts had been rewarded. A few days later, the final rehearsal day arrived. Minato and Zuka stood at the training ground entrance, but the scene inside surprised both of them. The training ground was so crowded. As soon as the reporters saw Zuka enter, they rushed forward with microphones bombarding her with questions, making Zuka confused and not understanding what was happening. Minato frowned slightly, sighing that it was just a match between students. That explains the importance of noble magical bloodlines. Not only reporters, but many students came to watch. Seeing this scene, Minato couldn't help but speak up. "Don't you think this is a bit too much? Magical battles are very rare and feel like a major event." After Minato said that, he heard no reply. He turned around and saw Zuka curled up sitting there. Just then, a shout came from afar. "Two contestants, please proceed to the arena." Zuka, immediately startled, stood up and tried to run. Minato saw she was unwell and hurriedly called her back, "Zuka, Zuka." At this moment, Zuka was anxious and asked, "What's wrong?" Minato smiled encouragingly. "Keep going." Hearing this, Zuka suddenly steadied herself. Then she smiled, her confident demeanor gradually returning to her face. She firmly said, "Of course." Immediately after, she stepped toward the training ground, thinking to herself, "Minato really is mysterious." His words echoed in her chest. Very quickly, Zuka stood before Ruka. Ruka squinted at her and said sternly, "So you're not running away?" "Of course not," Zuka confidently replied with a slight laugh. Ruka curled her lips disdainfully. "How rustic. Do you think you have a chance to beat someone like me?" Then she raised her eyebrows confidently at Zuka, seemingly sure of her victory. Zuka did not back down and shouted fiercely, "I will definitely win." Hearing this, Ruka clicked her tongue and sighed. "Looks like you've improved over the past 2 weeks." Zuka did not reply. She knew her sister was very strong. The power gap between the two was indeed large, but Zuka would not give up. Just then, a shout rang out. "We request permission to start the match." Immediately, the two Mizuha sisters entered combat mode. Zuka was the first to summon magic, shortening her incantation to conserve mana. At the same time, Ruka was not idle. She also summoned her magic. Minato, observing from outside, couldn't help but sigh that Ruka clearly knew the basics of a duel between two mages. Zuka was too nervous and forgot to move, losing the advantage of quick incantation. Just as Minato thought, Ruka instantly ambushed and appeared before Zuka. Both cast level 1 water magic. 2 surging waves collided in an instant. However, because her mana was weaker, Ruka's water wave was quickly dispersed. But she was also hit by Ruka's water wave, though she managed to break it. Ruka was surprised. She dispelled it. She was getting stronger. Even Ruka couldn't help but sigh. In just 2 weeks, you've become stronger. Hearing this, Ruka immediately felt happy. It was the first time she had been praised by her sister. Seeing her reaction, Ruka couldn't help but feel annoyed and asked, "What's so happy about that?" "It's just a comparison. I didn't praise you," Zuka said, and Ruka's gaze became firmer. She said coldly, "Now I will upgrade my magic rank." With that, she summoned her water wave again. Zuka dared not be careless, and quickly summoned magic to defend. In an instant, level 2 water magic appeared. It danced continuously in the air, then split into small water bubbles that crazily rushed toward Zuka. Zuka couldn't defend herself. She was hit by these water bubbles and was thrown like a kite with a broken string falling at Minato's feet. Minato glanced at Zuka, feeling helpless. In terms of incantation speed, Zuka had a higher chance of winning, but her opponent was simply stronger. While he was thinking, Ruka approached from afar and coldly spoke cruelly. "So why don't you intend to help her? You once protected her before, didn't you? No need." Minato responded without hesitation, making Ruka so shocked that her eyes widened. At this moment, Ruka had stood up from the ground, but her body was still trembling uncontrollably. Ruka was even more stunned, unable to believe it, shouting, "How could you attack me with level 2 magic? How are you still holding on?" Aggressively biting her lip, Juka firmly said she would not lose. Magic was the only thing she had, and even if she lost everything, she would not give up. As soon as she finished speaking, Zuka summoned her magic. Ruka snorted coldly and quickly summoned defensive magic. In the blink of an eye, 2 water element magics fiercely clashed, but very quickly Zuka weakened. She kept repeating, "I will definitely win, I will not give up," then collapsed helplessly to the ground. The result of the battle was decided. Zuka had exhausted her magic and victory belonged to Ruka. Zuka trembled, lying on the ground, her hands clenched into fists. Resigned, she muttered that she couldn't do anything was useless. Minato sighed helplessly and went to support Ruka. This was a battle based on the strength of magic control. However, she lost in terms of magic quantity. At this moment, Ruka spoke coldly. "Now do you understand? That girl has no talent at all, Kusanagi. You must have thought so too." Minato responded indifferently. "Indeed, she has no talent. Zuka is clumsy, progresses very slowly, incompetent, and even weaker in actual combat. But there is one thing I'm very satisfied with about Zuka. She is very hard-working and trains enthusiastically like a fool." Hearing this, Zuka looked at him in surprise while Ruka was indifferent, pursing her lips and speaking. "And this is the result." But before she could finish, Minato coldly interrupted, "Yes, she lost, but I like people who are hard-working like Zuka." These words moved Zuka to tears. It was the first time someone recognized her effort. Minato paid no attention and continued, "Zuka is my student. I feel very uncomfortable when you speak ill of her." Zuka became more and more agitated, tears streaming down her face. Ruka snorted coldly in disdain. "Someone with magic power at level 100 like you is being a bit too arrogant." "A bit too much." Shrugging indifferently, Minato confidently said, "And someone with magic power at level 100 will defeat her." Ruka, annoyed by him, showed a flash of dissatisfaction and coldly replied, "Your mouth is really something. Fine then. I don't want to waste my strength on an opponent like you." Ryuji suddenly became excited and spoke, "Finally I get to go on the field." Ruka walked past him coldly and requested, "End it quickly." Ryuji smiled softly and nodded in response. "No need to remind me. Over here." Minato carried the injured Zuka back to the seat, placed her on the chair, and said indifferently, "Focus on my match." Zuka nodded slightly to show she understood, but at this moment she realized a problem. Her body didn't hurt anywhere, and her wounds had already healed. Minato did not know what she was thinking and slowly stepped onto the arena. Although he had previously bragged that magic power 100 was enough to defeat Ryuji, now if he didn't give it his all, he had no chance to win. He would keep his magic power at 100, use void element magic without incantation, and not set up a magic barrier. So just one direct hit might cause him to log out immediately. The more he thought about it, the more excited he felt. Seeing Minato step onto the arena, Ryuji immediately became excited and shouted, "Sorry, little bro, I'm not going to give up." He smiled unconsciously. Minato pursed his lips and replied, "Fine, then I'll give you the chance." In an instant, the whole arena erupted with cheers. Shouts kept ringing out, "Ryuji, don't go all out, take it easy on him." On the arena, Ryuji unleashed his magic power, which Minato estimated to be about 8000. To him, before it was like a grasshopper kicking a cart, but now he could only use about 100 magic power. Immediately, the second match between Minato and Ryuji officially began. Ryuji summoned magic and laughed, "Don't hate me, okay?" Even just this move was enough to test whether Minato was the person who defeated those expelled students. Ryuji wanted to see if Minato could withstand this full-power attack. But before he could make a move, a ray of magic power struck directly at Ryuji's forehead. Minato pursed his lips disdainfully, too slow. This scene stunned the students in the stands. Less than 3 seconds and it's already over. Because Ryuji was unconscious, the victory went to Minato. Ruka hurried over to check on Ryuji, astonished in her heart that Minato knocked Ryuji out with just one strike. She didn't hear you chant any spell at all. What the hell did you do? While Ruka was still thinking, Minato's voice carrying a mocking tone reached her ears. I did exactly as you wished, finishing it quickly. Zuka, watching from outside, immediately cheered happily. Awesome, he really took him down. At this, Ruka glared at Minato and spoke coldly. It seems you do have some talent. Minato paid no attention and joked, better than you is enough. Still can't shut up, huh? Ruka angrily gritted her teeth and scolded, then directly unleashed all her magic power. Minato estimated it was only about 10,000, but it was already stronger than Ryuji's. While the two were struggling, the voice of the match host rang out. A shocking event had occurred after the second match in the combat style of contestant Kusanagi. The final match has truly received a lot of attention from the audience. It will be between Minato and Ruka. Everyone is eager to see who will ultimately win. As soon as the match was declared started, Minato did not hold back and attacked Ruka. Ruka, on the opposite side, was not flustered, calmly summoning magic to respond. Minato clearly knew his magic power was only about 100 now, so obviously the spells he used were not strong. That's why if Minato didn't aim straight at Ruka's forehead, he wouldn't cause any injury to her. Ruka also realized she shouldn't move much. Instead, she focused on defense. Just as Minato thought, Ruka easily defended standing still and using water waves to attack him repeatedly. Powerful water beams like knives wildly rushed forward. But the next scene shocked Ruka. Minato easily broke all her magic without damaging a single hair. Ruka was astonished, eyes wide open. He hadn't used magic all this time, so what the hell had this kid done? Even the trainees in the stands were equally confused, whispering and discussing. Shouldn't he have taken a hit already? He wasn't even wet. What was going on? Zuka, on the other hand, was not surprised. She was just thinking about what technique Minato had used to do this. Ruka was angry because Minato had broken through her attack. She was sure he was hiding some trick. Thinking that she attacked again, but this time Minato moved as if dancing in midair. He lightly dodged all the water wave beams. Ruka's attack made her eyes narrow involuntarily in disbelief, exclaiming, "He dodged all my attacks without even using magic." Zuka outside couldn't help but frown. A mage could use one magic to counter another. 2 attacks would partially cancel each other out. Everyone knew if that wasn't possible, getting hurt was inevitable. A level 2 technique would have different scale and speed from level 1. There was no way a guy like that could dodge everything and not get hurt at all. Ruka was sure Minato was fearless. Minato seemed to know what she was thinking and chuckled softly. But it's okay as long as I can sense the magic power. Dodging those weak attacks isn't a problem. Yeah, I just need to be a bit tougher. At this moment, Ruka began casting a level 3 water magic. In an instant, a water wave like an arrow appeared fiercely rushing toward Minato. Seeing this, everyone in the stands immediately exclaimed, "Level 3 magic, if that hits him, he's done for." Boom! The water arrow exploded directly. Water splashed in the air. Ruka weakened, slumped to the ground, smiling with satisfaction. How could he possibly block that? Yet at this moment, a magic beam shot from afar hit her forehead. Seeing who attacked, Ruka was shocked and shouted, "No way! How is he still fine? How did he dodge it?" Minato calmly said, "I used a magic to absorb your magic and simply stepped through the center of your attack." The air instantly fell silent. Ruka sat there for a long time without reacting. Just as Minato thought she wouldn't say anything, she suddenly tilted her head back and laughed loudly. "Just stepping through it, so I've already lost." Of course, the result was clear victory belonged to Minato. Zuka hurried over and asked if he was okay. Minato nodded and replied, "Yeah, both of us are fine. I won." Zuka smiled softly and nodded with eyes full of gratitude, seeing the two of them happy. Ruka also stood up from the ground indifferently and opened her mouth as promised, saying she would not mention this matter anymore. "You can do whatever you want." Minato heard this and couldn't help but sigh helplessly. Still so arrogant, huh? Then he suddenly spoke jokingly. "Zuka's wound is quite shallow, too. You are also too lenient. If only our battle was like that too, it would be great." Ruka heard it and immediately shouted in dissatisfaction, "That's not true." Minato refused and continued to comment, "Zuka has gotten much stronger after just 2 weeks. You must have noticed that too, right? Don't be too protective of him anymore." Zuka was also determined at this moment, promising, "I will definitely become stronger, so you won't have to worry about me anymore for sure." Ruka squinted at the two of them. hesitated for a long time, then nodded and replied, "Yeah, you're right because of this battle." The two Mizuha sisters had become closer. Minato looked at them and somehow felt happy. At that moment, suddenly dark clouds gathered in the sky. Along with terrifying auras that startled Minato, he hurriedly looked up at the sky, his expression instantly solemn. This unusual magic, is it a natural disaster? Ruka and Zuka also realized this. Everyone's faces changed color at the same time. Meanwhile, in the classroom, Jun's group was rummaging through Minato's seat on the floor, throwing things around. Jun's subordinates searched for a long time but found nothing. Annoyed, someone said he only has books and notebooks. "This guy is a good young man. Aggressively gritting his teeth, someone said he must have something. Otherwise, how could he use that magic?" Just then, a subordinate suddenly saw something and immediately shouted, "What the hell is that?" Jun thought he had found something and hurriedly looked over, but what was in front of him made him terrified. The sky outside was dyed red with blood, extremely frightening. The three of them instantly panicked, seemingly thinking of something. One subordinate shouted in fear, "It's a natural disaster." How could it be a natural disaster? Outside the arena, reporters and students were extremely confused. No one expected a natural disaster to strike the Magic Academy. Minato's expression was also very ugly. How could a natural disaster happen right now? Don't tell me this is related to the incident in Shinjuku. The first natural disaster also happened in Shinjuku. Is this just a coincidence or is there some arrangement? While he was thinking, magical beasts appeared from a spatial rift. The students saw them and fled in panic. The instructor also appeared and hurriedly reassured them to stay calm. But who could stay calm at a time like this? At that moment, a powerful magic beam appeared and killed the magical beasts attacking the students. The one who acted was none other than Minato. He shouted loudly, "Calm down." His voice quieted the students. Although still panicked, they stopped running and stood still. Minato was very pleased with this. He scanned everyone and instructed that at the early stage of a natural disaster, only low-level monsters appear. It's best that we evacuate to the gym, as I said. He looked at the three and Ruka suggested, "You guys should go too." Hearing this, they were shocked and shouted, "What are you planning to do?" Kusanagi Minato calmly said, "I have to save those trapped in the buildings first." The instructor looked worried and said, "You're going alone. You're too carefree." Ryuji quickly said, "I'll go too. This way it should be fine, right, teacher?" The instructor hesitated but then raised his eyebrows and said, "You've seen this kid's abilities, right?" The instructor hesitated for a moment, then nodded in agreement, "I know. But don't overdo it, okay?" Ryuji smiled softly and replied, "How could I die?" Then he glanced at Minato, who said nothing and shrugged indifferently. Then Minato looked at Zuka and said, "Then I'll go now." Worry appeared in Zuka's eyes. She spoke softly, "Be careful." Meanwhile, Ryuji said, "I'll go ahead. The kid's current speed allows Ryuji to run at 10 m per second. Let me see if Minato can catch up." But Ryuji was overthinking. Minato directly summoned magic and ran off. You swiftly dash past Ryuji, raising your eyebrows and joking, "I'll go ahead, senpai." Ryuji was astonished, eyes wide open, muttering irritably, "What kind of devilish speed is that?" "Hey, wait," he said quickly, running after you, but speed alone wouldn't help. "I'll observe your real abilities carefully down to every corner." Of course, Minato conveniently saved people paying little attention to Ryuji as he walked. He used magic to scan the entire academy area. There were 58 people capable of using magic inside the building. But it was possible some people couldn't use magic anymore. If so, he had to check each floor carefully. Inside the building, magical beasts had already invaded, and some students were trapped in classrooms unable to get out. Minato jumped in through the window and saw this scene. Without hesitation, he used magic to eliminate the magical beasts. His magic was extremely powerful. Wherever it passed, magical beasts fell. While Minato was focused on killing beasts inside the classroom, one beast suddenly charged from outside, attempting to ambush him. Minato seemed to have eyes in the back of his head. He casually unleashed magical power that tore the beast's body apart. Soon after, Ryuji ran over, panicked, asking, "Hey, is everyone okay?" But by then, Minato had already eliminated all the magical beasts. The bodies of the magical beasts piled up in the room. He walked past Ryuji coldly and said, "I'll leave the evacuation of the trapped students to you." Ryuji was startled and hurriedly said, "Wait, going alone is dangerous." But there was no one left behind. He muttered in frustration, "Where did he go so fast?" Ryuji thought Minato must consider him a burden, and he didn't know what to say. Maybe that was true. Minato had taken down those beasts in less than a second. Who exactly was this kid? Minato was unaware of these thoughts. He kept running wildly. Outside, they could use magical bullets to kill them in one shot, but in a confined space that might accidentally hurt others, so he had no other choice. He continuously used low-level magic to eliminate them, but that was enough. Minato easily defeated the magical beasts with low-level magic and saved many people, though it took some time to keep bringing rescued students to the gym. But he had someone to help him with that. Throughout the process, Ryuji always arrived later, but now he was fighting magical beasts outside, shouting fiercely, "I'll take down all the beasts, everyone quickly run to the gym." Just after Ryuji finished speaking, a sudden cheer echoed, startling him. "What's going on?" When he looked back, he saw students surrounded by magic. Then they slowly descended to the ground. Ryuji frowned and fell silent, wondering what Minato was doing. Exactly who was this guy? Minato looked down from above, smiled, and felt concerned for his junior. "It should be fine, right?" At that moment, he seemed to sense something. In a hidden corner of the building, a female student was trembling with fear, surrounded by magical beasts. She leaned against the wall, tears falling, unable to do anything else, helpless in this situation. She could only scream for help. "Someone please save me!" Suddenly, a ray of light flashed by, astonishing her. She recognized it. It was exactly like the one that had saved her before. While she was still confused, Minato descended from the hill, anxiously asking if she was okay. The female student recognized Minato and muttered, "Kusanagi, are you the one who saved me?" "Yes, that's right," he replied. Minato nodded slightly and helped her up. The female student then asked, "Was it also you in the practice class that time?" Minato hesitated for a moment before answering, "Yes, some unexpected things happened then." Hearing this, the female student gratefully bowed her head to him. "Thank you for saving my life twice." Minato declined politely, smiling casually. "It's nothing really, no big deal." Facing the person who saved her twice, the female student suddenly felt her maiden heart flutter, her cheeks blushing. Just then, Ryuji ran up from below, shouting loudly, "Who needs saving next?" Minato glanced at this female student and advised, "Just follow him. He'll take you to a safe place." "I'll go ahead." The female student wanted to call him back, but he had already run off. Even Ryuji was helpless. Minato didn't care what they thought and kept running upstairs. Several more students were still surrounded. "Can't wait until the police arrive. We have to do something." Meanwhile, at the Prime Minister's building, due to the recent natural disaster at the Magic Academy, all high-ranking officials are present. The Prime Minister sat at the head, seriously announcing that a natural disaster had occurred right at Kamui Magic Academy. The surrounding officials immediately whispered and discussed. "Why did that horror happen to us? There had been no recorded natural disaster since the last one 50 years ago. What should we do now?" The Prime Minister solemnly said, "We are still trying to contact the Magical Beast Handling Department at the City Police Station and the Noble Magicians. The ground defense forces are also always on standby." The high-ranking officials dissatisfiedly rebutted, but the magicians of the defense force only specialize in handling natural disasters. No one has experience fighting magical beasts, right? The Prime Minister obviously understood that. This is the consequence of living comfortably without worrying about facing natural disasters. We can only rely on the police force and noble magicians. The more he thought, the tighter he clenched his fists. The disaster from 50 years ago has happened again. But Ichikami Minato is no longer here. Who will save them? At the same time, a police car hurriedly moved toward the Magic Academy. The female police officer driving asked suspiciously, "Did a natural disaster really happen?" A deep male voice replied, "Yes, it can't be mistaken." The female officer panicked upon hearing this, "But we've been peaceful all these years." "So this peace was only temporary?" Inspector Shido Sugo smiled and said, "It's okay after all, that's why we're here." The female police driver, Sergeant Sanda Karen, hesitated for a moment before saying, "I will do my best." Immediately after, the two quickly headed to the scene. At the same time, a helicopter appeared in the sky above the Magic Academy, not a rescue team, but reporters. They were reporting on the magical beast attack situation to the people nationwide. Reporters who arrived early at the academy were also evacuated to safety. They were broadcasting live while instructors and students who could use magic outside were trying to eliminate low-level magical beasts. News about this disaster was a hot topic. Everyone was intently watching, all worried about the current situation, which was indeed very bad. The area next to the Magic Academy was also attacked by magical beasts. Nearby residents were extremely panicked, and everyone was out of the government's control. People across Japan were focusing on the Magic Academy, all waiting for news from the media. Some were worried because of the nearby area. Others feared the disaster would continue like 55 years ago. In short, the whole of Japan was in panic. Meanwhile, Minato at the Magic Academy was still fighting magical beasts to save people. But the magical beasts kept flooding into the school in large numbers. It was almost time to enter Phase 2. Each phase would bring out stronger new monsters. Moreover, they would continuously appear no matter how many we killed. As long as the boss was alive, magical beasts would still lurk around. The boss would reveal itself in the final phase. Minato had to hold on until then. The more he thought, the more annoyed he felt. Such a natural disaster was really troublesome. After rescuing people from the monsters, Minato used magic to teleport them downstairs. This time, there were a total of 20 people scattered everywhere, so just rescuing them was already difficult. But Minato did not think of giving up. He ran upstairs to continue. Meanwhile, inside the classroom, Jun was trying to eliminate the invading magical beasts, but his magic power was insufficient. Not long after, he was panting heavily, gritting his teeth and muttering, "I can't do this anymore. I can't attack any further because we're not just fighting ordinary magical beasts, but also demon soldiers. They are extremely panicked right now. Each one of them is scared out of their wits." Jun shouted defiantly, "That Kusanagi guy defeated one with just one strike. Why can't I do the same?" As soon as he said this, a contemptuous voice came from behind, "Because you're weak as hell." Jun immediately widened his eyes but didn't have time to see who it was. A brilliant flame was cast directly incinerating the demon soldier into dust under the horrified eyes of the other three. Only now did Jun look closely to see who was the one who acted, and it was the person he least wanted to see Minato. After acting, Minato said nothing and turned to leave. Jun bit his lip aggressively. Again, he was saved by that guy once more. Unwilling, he hurriedly ran after Minato, shouting loudly, "Stop right there!" Minato halted, and Jun angrily questioned, "Why did you save me? You should hate me. If so, then why?" Indifferently shrugging, Minato calmly said, "No reason at all. I saved you because I could do it, that's all." Hearing this, Jun's body trembled slightly in waves. He pursed his lips and muttered, "You saved me because you could, is that all you want to say?" But Jun could not accept this reason. He shouted fiercely, "Stop joking around! You're just a weak, effeminate guy anyway." He said that the guy no longer used proper magic. "How did you get stronger so fast?" Minato narrowed his eyes at Jun coldly and said, "Kusanagi Minato died in a traffic accident. And I was reincarnated into his body." Jun, upon hearing this, did not believe it and shouted, "What can a person get stronger after passing through death?" "I should be stronger than you, but why? Why am I strong with someone like you?" "A truly strong person never oppresses those weaker than themselves." Hearing this, Minato snorted coldly, narrowed his eyes at him, and said coldly, "And the weak never humiliate those even weaker than themselves. You have been swallowed by your own arrogance and blindly believe you are strong." At this moment, Jun did not even dare to think about fighting back against him. After saying this, Minato left, leaving Jun standing there alone. Not long after, he collapsed to the ground in despair. He knew he was running away from the truth that he had not gotten any stronger. Since high school, Jun had vented all his stress and anger on those weaker than himself, but then was saved by Minato, the person he considered the weakest. Jun's two juniors were also very awkward at this moment. They were ultimately saved by Minato and wanted to ask Jun what to do next. But he was even more devastated, tears continuously falling down his face, tears of regret and humiliation. Of course, Minato did not know how they were feeling at this time. He was still frantically running up to kill the magical beasts to save people. The higher he climbed, the more high-level magical beasts he encountered. Demon soldiers appeared, but Minato was not alarmed at all. Calmly, he used magic to attack the demon soldiers, but on the first attack, they dodged. Minato did not stop there. He used higher-level magic. With a bang, smoke and fire flared up instantly, and the demon soldier was quickly buried in a sea of flames. Minato narrowed his eyes, looking at the pile of ashes before him. His face showed no emotion as he silently thought the increasing number of demon soldiers meant the boss would appear soon. Thinking that, Minato approached the students huddled in a corner and spoke to reassure them, "Stay calm. Everything is fine now." At the same time, Ryuji below was extremely frustrated, shouting loudly, "You rotten kid, take all the blame." Although he scolded, his hands continuously summoned magic to destroy the magical beasts. There were really many magical beasts relentlessly chasing and attacking the students. Ryuji protected the students behind while attacking the magical beasts. He glanced at the students and said, "I will protect you all, so follow me." The students, seeing his cool and tired look, all admired this leader, but Ryuji's words were just words. With magical beasts everywhere like this, what could they do? While he was confused, Minato descended from the hill and coldly said, "Let me help you." Hearing the voice, Ryuji was startled and shouted, "Don't suddenly appear out of nowhere like that." Minato lazily ignored him and said calmly, "Run right after I finish dealing with these guys." Ryuji heard this and hesitated, saying, "But what about this many? Can you handle it? Maybe it's better to take another route." But just as he finished speaking, brilliant flames burst forth, burying the magical beasts in a sea of fire. The one who acted was, of course, Minato. This scene made all of the students, including Ryuji, look at him in awe. Seeing this, Minato immediately reminded, "Don't get cocky, let's go quickly." Ryuji then regained his composure and hurriedly led the other students away. Ryuji walked while turning his head back and saw Minato casually waving his magic hand, instantly wiping out all the demon beasts chasing the students. The more Ryuji looked, the more terrified he became. Amazing, this kid is really awesome. Minato continued to focus on stopping the demon beasts. After defeating them, he looked around. Everyone had already left. He should go back and check one more time. Meanwhile, in another corner of the academy, the instructor and students with magical power were trying to hold off the demons. Zuka was also there. But at this moment, she seemed to be running out of magic power, weakened and staggering about to fall. Fortunately, Ruka caught her. Ruka coldly said, "If you can't do it, go inside." "You're blocking everyone." Yuka immediately shook her head, refusing. "I can still fight." "We don't have time to rest." Ruka frowned upon hearing this, silent, wanting to advise, but not knowing what to say. She could only blink and watch Zuka try to attack the demon beasts with magic. At that moment, Ryuji arrived with other students. "I brought the trapped students back, sir." The instructor praised him. "Well done, bring them inside." Ryuji entrusted this task to others and ran to the place where the two Mizuha sisters were asking about the situation. Ruka sighed helplessly. It's hard to hold them off any longer. Zuka suspiciously asked, "Where is Kusanagi?" Ryuji chuckled softly, raised his eyebrows, and said, "That kid isn't hurt anywhere, still breathing and relaxing over there." "Really?" Zuka only then breathed a sigh of relief. Ryuji didn't think much and began using magic to attack the demon beasts with everyone, but his mouth kept babbling, "That kid Kusanagi is really amazing. With that kid here, getting through this disaster will be easy." Zuka nodded slightly in agreement. "I think so too, Senior." "Oh, with Kusanagi, we're sure—" Before she finished speaking, the ground suddenly shook violently, startling everyone. The instructor shouted loudly, "Evacuate! Evacuate immediately!" Because in front of them were many more demon beasts, and not low-level ones, but demon soldiers. Ryuji shouted in panic, "Too many demons! We have to get out of here!" Everyone heard and quickly turned to run. Ryuji and the two Mizuha sisters were no exception. They couldn't fight the demon beasts in front of them. But they hadn't run far when Zuka suddenly sensed something. Glancing back, they saw the demon beasts being attacked by magic fresh blood spraying like rain. The three, including Ryuji, were stunned, not knowing when the magical police had arrived. The leader was Inspector Sugo, who urgently ordered, "Quickly eliminate them. Priority is ensuring the safety of the students." Very quickly, other police officers began attacking the demon beasts in front. Seeing this, the students behind breathed a sigh of relief. They were finally saved. Sugo killed demon beasts while shouting to reassure them, "Don't worry, we will help you get out of here. Evacuate quickly following the instructions." However, Zuka spoke up, "We will support everyone." Sugo looked surprised at her and firmly said, "Civilians, you should evacuate to the gym, it's safer." Before Zuka could continue, Ruka quickly interrupted, "We're not civilians, we're magicians." Sugo hesitated for a moment, then nodded in agreement. "All right then, help us attack from the outskirts." Honestly, the reinforcements were too few, so they had to rely on their help. Look at how pathetic the police force is. Meanwhile, Karen was treating other students. In another part of the academy's rooftop, Minato saw the police cars arrive and breathed a sigh of relief, whispering, "Finally, the police are here. Leave the rest to them." But it seemed the police arrived even earlier than the ground defense forces. After all, a disaster is a national-level event. How could a country be so unprepared? But who knows, maybe it's possible. This country might have already been complacent after past victories. Well, for now, just do your best and see if any students are still trapped. At the same time, on the helicopter high above, a reporter saw the entire scene below and began reporting, "It seems the police have arrived." However, the number of magical beasts shows no signs of decreasing. The people of the whole country are wholeheartedly waiting for the appearance of the noble mages because ultimately such incidents require their intervention. Everyone is eagerly awaiting the noble mages' help. All the people believe that the noble mages will appear soon. The female reporter is present at the scene at this moment, looking straight into the camera and shouting loudly, "Please appear quickly, noble mages." However, in the room of the Fuyuka clan head, upon hearing the butler's report, he coldly said, "Ignore them." The butler hesitated and asked back, "Are you sure, sir?" The Fuyuka clan head snorted coldly and said, "Even the police are enough to handle a small disaster like this. No need for noble mages like me to get involved," he said, then rubbed his legs and left. Seeing this, the butler suspiciously asked, "Where are you going, sir?" The Fuyuka clan head coldly replied with one word, "Sleep." The butler had no objections, bowed respectfully, and said, "Wish you a good sleep, sir." At the same time, at the Magic Academy, Sugo is trying to resist the magical beasts, but the situation here is starting to worsen. Thinking so, he glanced at his subordinates and asked if they could handle those near the entrance. The other person shook his head slightly and replied, "No, we can't. The number there is too many." Sugo's expression instantly became serious. "They appeared faster than I expected. There's no time to evacuate the people. Supporting the outer perimeter is the most important task, yet we haven't reached it. Now we can only rely on the noble mages, but we can't even contact them." The more he thought, the more dissatisfied Sugo became. He couldn't help but shout loudly, "Damn it! Where are those stubborn people at times like this? When needed, they can't be relied on. We have to depend on the students still studying at the academy to help. This shows how terrible Japan's military force is right now." Sugo frowned fiercely. He had read about this before. It's called a natural disaster for a reason. The people of Japan in the past also experienced this, right? And if the boss appears now, then it's the end of the line. Thinking this, the ground shook again, frightening everyone. Sugo bit his lip fiercely. No way could that demon general be the boss. Zuka's expression was also very serious. That monster rarely appeared in this area, and only the noble mages are strong enough to defeat it. Zuka also knew clearly that at least a magic of level 5 or higher was needed to defeat it, but no one here could use such advanced magic. While everyone was confused, a brilliant flame suddenly attacked. Ruka didn't hesitate and blocked in front of Juka. Ruka fell down before Juka, causing her extreme panic. Her eyes filled with worry, Ruka lay on the ground, trembling continuously. She looked up and called out, "Run, Ruka!" But Ruka still sat there, unable to move her legs. While everyone was panicking and fleeing, Ruka tightly held Ruka with eyes full of pleading. Sugo and the magical police here were trying to resist, but they were no match for that magical beast. Ryuji was also weakened and could do nothing more, but in front of them a figure emerged from the brilliant flames. Seeing it, everyone's expression turned grim. They seemed to have accepted their fate. They would die here. Juka still tightly held Ruka and kept shouting loudly, "Kusanagi, please save us, Kusanagi!" The flames were blazing fiercely, rushing toward everyone. Yuka became more desperate and shouted loudly, "Minato!" The heat was getting closer to everyone. The monster was also advancing. But at this moment, the monster suddenly halted. It saw something blocking its path from above. A large amount of magical power was attacking it, and at the same time, a figure appeared before Juka. The person who came was Minato. He seriously said, "Sorry for being late, I made you wait." Zuka saw him and immediately felt joyful, but Ruka's condition was very bad. Her tears began to fall heavily. "Kusanagi, she's..." Minato went to check and finally spoke. "It's okay, she just fainted." Saying that, he placed his hand on her and began healing. Zuka was still anxious, silently bowing her head and waiting. Minato continued healing Ruka for a long time before gritting his teeth and standing up. Seeing that Ruka was startled and called him back, Minato glanced at her indifferently and said, "I will handle this, boss." Seeing this, Ruka was startled and called him back. Minato glanced at her calmly and said, "I will deal with this, boss." Ruka was momentarily stunned but quickly nodded in agreement. Right after that, the entire place was protected by a magical shield. Zuka was startled and amazed. What is this? Ruka's wounds were also healing rapidly. The more Zuka looked, the more amazed he became. The other students felt this magic for the first time. Karen was extremely shocked as she came out from inside and saw this scene. Her eyes widened. Is this a third-level holy healing spell? Even she couldn't use it. Who could it be? She ran to Sugo's side and anxiously asked, "Senior, are you okay?" Sugo shook his head slightly and replied, "I'm fine. Just a little overexerted." Karen helped him up, then glanced around and asked, "What is happening here?" Sugo reluctantly shook his head. "I'm not sure either, but we have to protect the people until our last breath." Karen hesitated anxiously and said, "That's very dangerous." You could die out there, Senior," she said, fiercely biting her lip. Sugo firmly opened his mouth. "But if we don't do something, all the people here will die." Karen understood this. But she still worried and said, "This is basically impossible. In the end, all our forces will be wiped out." Just as she said, a corner of the academy was already engulfed in flames. All the magical police had fallen. Sugo bit his lip fiercely, his eyes full of resentment. "Defense forces or noble magicians or whatever? No one came here. We can't do anything anymore. The magical police have given up. The battle against the magical beasts is getting worse." The smoke and fire flared more fiercely. Reporters at the scene panicked, unable to believe it. The police, too. Is this the end for us? People watching the live broadcast were also very worried, all anxious and uneasy. But at the scene, Minato was walking alone toward the monster. Seeing this scene, Karen immediately exclaimed in shock, "There's a student walking straight to the demons. Does he want to die?" Sugo was equally shocked and shouted urgently, "Hey, get out of there quickly!" Unfortunately, Minato didn't listen. He soon stood face to face with the monster. Minato snorted coldly. "You seem to like acting on your own, huh?" The monster squinted at him, mumbling, "Kill, kill," in a deep, terrifying voice that echoed throughout the area. This caused the students here to panic. Even Sugo and Karin were equally frightened. The pressure from it made everyone scared. At that moment, a thunderous explosion sounded. Minato coldly ordered, "Shut up." The monster was attacked by him and angrily raised its head to roar. The low-level magical beasts immediately attacked him. Minato frowned thoughtfully, facing the worst disaster in the world. He had used all his strength, but this time he had to hold back a bit because of the people around him. While Minato was thinking, a furious lightning magic rushed toward him. In an instant, he was surrounded by lightning. Sugo saw this and panicked. "Is he dead?" Everyone around was also anxiously watching to see if Minato was still alive. While everyone was confused, a stream of magic appeared, catching everyone's attention. This magic came from Minato's hands and began to dance in the air. It frantically destroyed the magical beasts. Seeing this scene, Sugo was horrified. "What is that? Who is that student?" Not only them, but reporters at the scene also noticed Minato's appearance, but they couldn't see his face. A cameraman tried to get closer to see clearly, but was attacked by magic, preventing him from achieving his goal. The one who intervened was Zuka. Minato had tried to hide his true power all along. "This way you can fight without being distracted." At the same time, inside the battle, dozens of magic beams shot from both of Minato's hands, continuously dancing in the air. Every place they passed, the magical beasts fell. This scene made the inexperienced students unable to believe it, exclaiming, "He's amazing, can we really be saved? How can he do this?" But they had no time to be distracted. There were still low-level magical beasts, but fortunately there were still people who could use magic to defeat them. Zugo shouted loudly while attacking, "There must be something that can help. Support him." Minato was fighting the boss, and upon hearing this, he couldn't help but smile. Police officers these days don't seem so bad after all, he thought, then immediately waved his hand. The magical rays exploded again. The boss was extremely angry and quickly summoned magic. Seeing this, Sugo panicked and shouted, "6-star level magic," almost equivalent to noble magicians. There's nothing else, can't do anything more. The magic the boss cast was 6-star level Fire Dragon Smoke Roar. Once again, the students here were thrown into panic in an instant. The reporters present at the scene were equally desperate. Sugo helplessly watched the flames rushing toward them. The flames were so brilliant they could engulf everything. They carried a terrifying blood-red color. The students were very desperate. Even Karin could only pray to the gods to save them. Sugo thought no matter how strong Minato was, he couldn't possibly defeat that. There was no way to survive anymore. The only person who trusted Minato at this moment was Zuka. She believed he could definitely do it. If it's Minato, then surely he can. Minato will definitely survive and save everyone here. At the same time, Minato was silently observing the demon boss in front of him. It was indeed huge. But the bigger it was, the slower the demon general was. It was trying desperately to use 6-star level magic. If he restrained his power, he wouldn't be able to do anything to it, right? He really didn't want this, but there was no other way. Thinking of this, Minato immediately raised his hand to summon 2 types of magic simultaneously. In the blink of an eye, he unleashed his own magical power. Juka stared blankly at the huge magical power dancing before her eyes. She was amazed, eyes wide open, but more than that, she was joyful. Under everyone's surprised gaze, a giant serpent made of water element magic appeared. Sugo looked more and more confused. Was this combined magic? At the same time, the demon general's fire dragon aggressively charged. Minato's water serpent did not yield and directly confronted it. With a loud crash, 2 powerful forces collided. They entwined fire and water, fiercely opposing each other. The demon general below frantically cast magic, mumbling some incomprehensible words. "Slaughter the humans, die!" Immediately after, the fire dragon grew larger again and charged forward with mighty momentum. Seeing this, Minato couldn't help but sneer with contempt. His giant water serpent rushed at the fire dragon and destroyed it in an instant. But it was not dead yet. The water serpent quickly moved forward and reached the demon general. It was swallowed whole by the water wave. Before dying, it could only mumble 2 words, "Why?" Minato, expressionless, watched it slowly dissolve and coldly snorted, because it lacked training, of course. Although he said that, Minato thought maybe it could have done more, but it seemed weaker than he thought. After the boss died, the Magic Academy returned to clear skies. Minato looked up at the sky and smiled. It seemed that after defeating the boss, the disaster was over. At least now they could enjoy some rare peace. Only then could the students recover. They had been saved. Immediately, the crowd began cheering loudly for escaping hell. Even the reporters at the scene were no exception, crying tears of joy. Karen also breathed a sigh of relief, safe now. The disaster was over. At this moment, Sugo was very surprised, unable to believe that a student like Minato could defeat the demon general, something even noble magicians might not be able to do so cleanly and quickly. "Who exactly are you?" But before he could think further, his legs went weak and he collapsed. He couldn't help but mutter, "Seems even my knees have gone on strike." On this side, Minato approached Juka and smiled, saying, "I did it." Juka looked up at him, eyes glistening with tears, and said, "That's right, I believed you could do it. Thank you, Minato." "You're welcome," Minato replied, shaking his head and smiling. While the two were talking, other students rushed over, making Minato startled. Before he could understand what was happening, he was surrounded by a group of students who kept praising him to the skies. Minato helplessly sighed, finally unable to escape the fate of being noticed, seeing the future as gloomy as the sky earlier. Seeing his reaction, Juki couldn't help but smile. He seemed very annoyed. The next day, all the media reported on the disaster. At the Magic Academy, even though the disaster was averted by a mysterious student, everyone at the academy knew that mysterious student was Minato after the disaster event. The crowd around Minato grew larger and larger. Every time he came to class, they stood beside him asking all sorts of questions which annoyed him greatly. Of course, some people were dissatisfied and spoke out. It seems that someone has been flattered and has started to become arrogant. How could a student like him be so strong? So those students started arguing just like in class, splitting into two factions, one supporting Minato, the other not believing him. Taking advantage of their noise, Minato escaped outside. He was really too afraid of those people. At that moment, Zuka appeared beside him, jokingly saying, "That was tough, huh?" Minato coldly replied, "Stop talking." Smiling softly, Zuka casually teased him, "You're the hero who protected everyone. So there's no other way, right?" Minato declined to comment and changed the subject. "You were transferred to Class S as well, right?" Nodding briefly, Zuka sighed and replied, "Probably because of the sparring match and the recent incident." Minato frowned slightly suspiciously, asking, "You don't seem to like it, huh?" Hearing this, Zuka immediately turned her head, muttering with a pout, "Of course not, there was someone there anyway." Minato didn't think much about her words and continued asking, "Thinking back, how is Zuka's situation now?" Zuka smiled and replied, "She's fine now. Well, besides, we're closer now." Zuka was really happy about this. It's all thanks to Minato. Her eyes sparkling, she looked at Minato and smiled, sincerely opening her mouth to say, "Thank you, meeting you here is truly my luck." Hearing this, Minato was annoyed and flicked her forehead. Making Zuka confused, she asked, "What was that for?" Minato pouted and replied, "Just one thank you, stop saying it all the time," then turned and walked away. Jika watched his back, then smiled. This young girl's heart seemed to have been moved. In another place at the Prime Minister's meeting room, all high-ranking officials were present. The Prime Minister was continuously calling for someone. After a while, he finally spoke about this matter. The territorial dispute with other countries officially ended. Someone suspiciously asked, "Finding the cause of the second disaster wasn't easy, right?" "Isn't that right?" The Prime Minister nodded slightly and replied, "They have done their best to find ways to deal with it." Rumors about the student who defeated that monster? They continued discussing the disaster and Minato's defeat of the demon general. Meanwhile, elsewhere on the Magic Academy's rooftop, Minato was called up again. This time, Ruka Ryuji and Zuka were there. The four stood looking at each other. The atmosphere was a bit tense. After a long moment, Ruka slowly spoke. "Kusanagi, I have something to ask of you. Please accept me as your student." When she made this request, her eyes were full of determination. A few days earlier at the Mizuha family mansion, the two sisters Zuka sat outside silently for a long time before Zuka slowly spoke, this genius. She suddenly spoke, making Zuka a bit startled. Ruka didn't care and calmly continued, "It seems Kusanagi stopped the disaster this time, right?" Hearing this, Zuka nodded and replied, "Yes, Kusanagi defeated the demon general boss using level 4 composite magic." Ruka couldn't believe it and looked at her suspiciously, asking back, "You said level 4 composite magic. That's the kind of magic even high-level mages can't use." "Do you know that for sure?" Juka was extremely determined and nodded. Seeing her reaction, Ruka hesitated for a moment, then said, "Then it must be true." "How could my Juka lie?" Yuka was a bit surprised and asked why she believed she wouldn't lie. Ruka smiled lightly and replied, "Because you have always obeyed me since you were little." She thought a child like that could never be a useless mage. But it seemed she had overused violence. Hearing this, Juka suddenly looked a bit sad, then stood up strongly and declared, "I will definitely become stronger. So I won't make you worry about me anymore. Please believe in me." At this moment, Juka was more determined than ever. Her reaction made Ruka a bit stunned, but very quickly Ruka smiled and spoke. You have truly matured, Juka! Hearing this, a gleam of joy appeared in Zuka's eyes. Ruka said nothing she was thinking about Minato. His power was terrifyingly immense. He has surpassed the level of a student. He might even be stronger than her father, she thought. Ruka looked up at Juka and said, "Please help me with something." Back to reality. Ruka silently waited for Minato's answer. She knew very well that if things continued like this, she could only become a high-level mage. To become stronger, she needed Minato's help. Taking a deep breath, Ruka sincerely said, "I apologize for offending and underestimating you. Truly, I am sorry." She said she knew very well how selfish this request was. However, she was willing to set aside her pride to ask Minato. Her tone carried a hint of pleading as she lowered her head and quietly said, "Please allow me." Before she could finish, Minato coldly interrupted, "Fine." The sudden answer stunned Ruka, leaving her speechless. Minato repeated once more, "I said I will accept you as my disciple." Ruka was still a bit confused. She doubted and asked why. Now it was Minato's turn to be puzzled, and he asked, "What's so strange about that? You're the one who wanted this." Ruka hurriedly said, "That's true, but I have done many terrible things to you." Minato shrugged indifferently and said, "Anyway, you already apologized. So I forgive you. Besides, you want me to accept your apology. That's all." Ruka was stunned by such a casual answer. At that moment, Ryuji also hurriedly interrupted, "Then I want to be included too." Minato rejected the idea with a smirk. "Fine. Teaching one or two more people is okay." Seeing Ruka still confused, Ruka explained, "He's that kind of person." Ruka squinted at Minato, silently admiring. He really is a strange kid. A while later, in the Magic Academy's meeting room, Minato and Zuka didn't know why they were called there. In front of them were Inspector Sugo and Sergeant Karen, who were bowing sincerely to Minato and said, "First, please allow us to thank you. If it weren't for you, both ordinary citizens and us would have been wiped out." Minato couldn't help but feel awkward. "You've been thanking me since the interrogation. I think that's enough. Is there anything else?" Sugo nodded slightly and replied, "The investigation into the natural disaster is over. But there are still some things that concern us." Minato asked in surprise, "Some things that attract your attention?" Sugo didn't hide his purpose. "Kusanagi, you awakened your mage abilities after being involved in a traffic accident, right? Those around you also testified similarly, so there's probably no mistake. But after investigating, I heard someone say that after the accident, you seemed like a completely new person." Hearing this, Minato's eyes showed caution. Sugo didn't notice and continued, "Your personality changed and your power grew abnormally strong, even strong enough to defeat a demon general." The more he spoke, the more confused those present became. Juka couldn't help but question with dissatisfaction, "Wait a minute, what do you mean by this?" Sugo seemed to realize his mistake. "If you're mumbling like that, let me change the question. Do you know the name of the Dark Mage?" Both Minato and Zuka were stunned. "What does that Dark Mage have to do with this?" Sugo slowly explained, "He is a mage who defeated all the wandering magical beasts around, and helped other citizens under the cover of night. This video has spread widely online, yet you haven't seen it. He even showed the video to the two of them." Karen beside them seemed to understand something. Zuka frowned and asked, "How is this related to Kusanagi?" Sugo answered casually, "Because these two have some similarities in physique and age. The Dark Mage is rumored to be a rather famous mage. But his magic doesn't match yet. The time he started acting coincides with the time Minato was discharged from the hospital." The instructor sitting beside them heard Sugo's words. His face turned pale and then white, seemingly very worried. Karen remained silent without a word. Meanwhile, Sugo kept rambling about how using magic in the city without a permit is illegal because this has attracted too much attention. The police had no choice but to intervene. Zuka, hearing that she would be severely punished, glanced anxiously at Minato. Sugo, with a serious expression, also looked at him intently and spoke coldly. "If you admit everything, we promise to do everything possible to reduce your punishment, so please answer honestly, are you a Dark Mage?" "No, sir." Minato confidently shook his head to deny it. Hearing this, Sugo smiled happily and said, "I understand. So you're not him, huh? That's good, then." Immediately after, Sugo and Karen stood up to say goodbye. "Thank you all for your time. We're leaving now." The two quickly left the room. Sugo then recalled Minato's reaction. He didn't seem nervous at all. If he really was a Dark Mage, he must be very bold. On the other hand, Karen seemed certain that Minato was indeed that mage. Everything about him, the atmosphere around him, and his voice was exactly the same. Could it be that his secretive actions that night were simply to save the people? Why can't you tell Sugo Minato's true identity? Although this might be considered a failure for a police officer, you're a good person who saved her. So the two police officers were in opposite states at the same time. Sugo wanted to extract Minato's hidden identity while Karen wanted to protect it. In another aspect, after the meeting in the conference room, Minato and Zuka went to class to report to the teacher. Standing on the podium, the teacher declared, "These are two students, Kusanagi and Mizuha. They will become members of our class from today. Please help them." Minato was warmly welcomed for defeating the demon general. As soon as he sat down, a group of people surrounded him asking questions non-stop. Naturally, given his background, Zuka faced the same situation, making it a bit difficult for Cho to handle. Seeing the students crowding around the two, the teacher helplessly spoke up. "Everyone please settle down and take your seats." The class had already started. Minato really felt annoyed. He was interrogated from class time through the break. This was exactly why he didn't want to stand out too much. Taking advantage of the break, Minato sneaked away. But someone called him back. He turned suspiciously and saw it was the pink-haired girl he had saved from the beast the other day. She looked at him shyly and said, "Kusanagi, can you come with me for a moment?" A little later on the academy's rooftop, Minato felt truly helpless. Was this place the new trend for calling someone up to the school rooftop? "Every time you want to talk to someone, huh?" To his surprise, Zuka was also there. She just wanted to find a place to practice alone without being noticed, but didn't expect Minato to be here. And he was with some unfamiliar girl. What were they doing here? The pink-haired girl hesitated in front of Minato and asked if he remembered her. Minato felt a little guilty and shook his head. "Sorry, I don't remember." The pink-haired girl wasn't surprised and quietly said, "I'm the one you saved during the recent disaster." At that moment, Minato remembered and nodded, saying, "All right, I do remember that." The girl blushed instantly, lowered her head shyly, and said, "During practice, I was attacked by monsters and was saved by someone using magic. That magic was yours, wasn't it, Kusanagi?" Minato recalled that day's practice. "You just happened to help." But the girl was very grateful and said, "Thank you for saving me twice." Minato gently shook his head and replied, "Don't mention it. I just did what I could." Although he said that, the girl still blushed and said, "You're really cool, Kusanagi." At the same time, Zuka tried to eavesdrop on their conversation but couldn't hear anything. Suddenly, the pink-haired girl shouted, "Kusanagi, I like you. Please agree to go out with me." Zuka was stunned. So it was a confession. Although he said so, the female student still shyly spoke, "You're really cool, Kusanagi." At the same time, Zuka was trying to eavesdrop on their conversation but couldn't hear anything. At that moment, the pink-haired female student suddenly shouted, "Kusanagi, I like you. Please agree to go out with me." Zuka was immediately stunned. So this is a confession, huh? Even Minato, the one being confessed to, was equally shocked. Seeing that he didn't respond, the pink-haired girl firmly continued, "I'm really not outstanding in any way, but I will try to improve myself, so please agree to let me be your girlfriend, Kusanagi." Minato stood there stunned, saying nothing, until the girl thought he wouldn't answer. He suddenly opened his mouth. "Thank you for liking me." The pink-haired girl was happy to hear that, but her joy didn't last long. Minato then apologetically said, "But I'm sorry, I really don't have time to think about dating. At this moment, there is something I must do no matter what." The pink-haired female student heard this and immediately lowered her head, murmuring softly, "I understand." But very quickly, she lifted her head back up, her expression bright as before. "Thank you for being honest with me. I think now I can let go of these feelings." Saying that, she turned and left the rooftop. Zuka tried to hide behind the wall, but Minato still noticed him and coldly said, "How long do you plan to hide there?" "Nothing." Zuka was startled, took a deep breath, then shyly poked his head out and said, "I thought I had hidden my mana very well." Minato smirked and said, "Your control is really bad. Your mana is leaking everywhere. This is the second time already. Do you like spying on others that much?" Zuka retorted, "I just happened to overhear it, that's all. It's not like I did it on purpose, okay? Why did you reject her? She's pretty cute, isn't she?" Minato smirked and said, "I'm not thinking about that right now," then turned and walked away, leaving Zuka standing there bewildered. What Minato meant was that the age gap between them was too big, even though physically they were in the same year. Zuka watched Minato's back, hesitating and murmuring, "I see, so you won't date anyone, right?" She suddenly realized something. Why did she feel relieved when Minato said that? Zuka thought while following Minato downstairs. He won't date anyone at all. While thinking, Minato suddenly turned his head back, making Zuka freeze in place. Minato said coldly, "Practice controlling your mana more often. You're still very careless." Zuka finally snapped out of it and said, I know. I'll practice hard to become stronger until the day Minato acknowledges me." That evening, as usual, Minato went out to check. The number of monsters showed no signs of decreasing, even though the natural disaster had passed. Could this be a sign that another wave of disaster was about to strike suddenly? A loud scream suddenly echoed in the darkness. It was a girl's scream, and behind her a mage was chasing. He sneered coldly. "No monster would bother to wander here at this hour to save you." But there really was one. Minato stood in front of the girl. This made the mage panic. Before he could recover, Minato punched him in the stomach, sending him flying. Minato squinted at him, thinking coldly. An amateur mage trying to do something wicked, terrible close combat skills probably never fought another mage before. Meanwhile, the girl who was saved looked at him gratefully, but quickly realized who he was and exclaimed in surprise, "Are you really not a dark mage?" But before she could finish, Minato disappeared, ignoring her screams to stop him. Minato used magic to move elsewhere. A dark mage, huh? Students at school, and even that guy Sugo mentioned him. It seems they were talking about you. But how did you suddenly become famous? The next morning on the academy rooftop, Minato and 3 others, including Zuka, gathered there. He frowned and asked about the guy Sugo mentioned earlier. Yeah, an amateur mage who likes to act mysterious at night. People talk a lot about him, so I was just curious why. Ryuji replied while eating, probably because he's a trending topic online. Minato was surprised and asked, "What is the internet?" This made the 3 of them freeze, then start whispering. Finally, Zuka explained, "The internet is an information system covering the whole world. We can find anything on it. So information spreads as fast as the speed of light." After listening for a while, Minato finally understood. He took out his phone to explain that he could also access it with his phone. "You must have one, right? Try opening Google or something." Minato fiddled with it and finally succeeded, excitedly shouting, "I did it!" Zuka and Ryoji clapped along with him. "You did it!" Minato smirked and said, "This is nothing." Zuka saw them acting like immature kids. Unable to hold back, she sighed helplessly and cut in seriously. "By the way, you promised to help us train, so when do we start?" Minato happily replied, "We can start right after school today, because everyone has already taught me how to use a smartphone and this thing called the internet. So I will try my best to help everyone as much as I can." Upon hearing this, Zuka suddenly felt a bit relieved, less harsh than she thought by the afternoon after school. The 4 of them went to Zuka's villa to train, and before long, all 3 had collapsed. Minato reluctantly shook his head. "Oh, come on. We haven't even warmed up yet. You have to put your all into it as if your life depends on it." These words seemed to hit a sore spot for the 3 of them, and they immediately stood up, each speaking firmly. "I can still handle it, don't underestimate us." Only then was Minato satisfied and nodded. "That's more like it. Now attack me." Immediately, the 3 of them rushed toward Minato. Meanwhile, near Tokyo Tower, an anomaly appeared, and a nearby observer immediately shouted in panic. "Unbelievable. It looked normal just a moment ago, so what on earth is happening?" The scene before them made Cho and the others tremble with fear because a horde of magical beasts had appeared near Tokyo Tower. Meanwhile, back at Zuka's villa, the 3 of them quickly collapsed before Minato. Seeing this, Minato raised an eyebrow and asked, "What's wrong, giving up already?" "Not yet, eat this." The 3 immediately stood up fiercely and used magical power to attack Minato together, but Minato only needed to create a protective shield. It could block everything. Moreover, he flicked magical power at the foreheads of Zuka and Ryuji, stunning them. At the same time, Zuka took the opportunity to sneak attack Minato from behind, proudly shouting, "This is a weakness." Minato smiled and said, then dodged to the side, avoiding Zuka's attack. Surprised, Zuka exclaimed, "He dodged it!" Before she could recover, a beam of magical power flicked her forehead. The 3 were defeated by Minato again. He sighed in relief and said, "All right, let's take a break." Upon hearing this, the 3 went to sit down to drink water and rest. After a while, they were drenched in sweat. Ryuji wiped his sweat and said, "But it seems like you're too strong, huh?" Zuka nodded in agreement. "Even I, the top student of the academy, couldn't even touch a hair on you." Zuka sighed. "That's right. This guy is no longer at the level of an ordinary student." Then she glanced meaningfully at Minato. This look made Cho and Minato feel a bit annoyed. Reluctant to explain repeatedly, he decided to reveal the reason once and for all. "I almost logged out during that accident, and as soon as I regained consciousness, I received this power. As for why, I don't know, so please don't ask anymore." Ruka frowned after hearing this and reasoned, "Then your near-death experience was the trigger. That activated your power." Seeing their reactions, Minato sighed in relief. "These guys are as easy to fool as kids. Just by looking at their faces, I can tell I tricked them." But Minato didn't know that Zuka didn't believe him. She thought maybe he really had a reason to hide the truth, and that he had gone this far to keep it a secret. It's best not to dig deeper into this matter. Minato squinted at the 3 sitting silently there. He really thought they were all too easy to fool. After a while, they finally finished training and went home. Ryuji walked while sighing. That training was amazing. Minato, walking beside him, couldn't help but say, "You're really tough." Ryuji smiled and said, "That's because I always train myself. But now I'm starving. I have to go home early to cook for the kids." Hearing this, Minato asked suspiciously, "You cook for yourself, even though you look so big?" Ryuji frowned at him. What do you mean, kid? The two kept talking while walking. Ryuji suspiciously asked, "Do you always eat out?" Minato shook his head slightly. "No, most of the time I eat instant noodles." Ryuji was shocked and exclaimed, "Instant noodles, that's all." Indifferently shrugging, Minato smiled. The world has really become very convenient. Ryuji looked at him fiercely, his tone a bit annoyed. "How can your body handle it if you keep eating food with no nutrition like that? Seeing you react so strongly like that." Minato couldn't help but feel dissatisfied. He was just like my father. However, Ryuji didn't pay attention and had already pulled Minato away by the shoulder. "Come to my house so I can treat you to a meal." Minato really wanted to refuse, but this person was just too stubborn. So finally, the two of them arrived at Ryuji's house. An introvert like Minato was clung to by 3 kids and he didn't know what to do. As for Ryuji, he naturally took on the responsibility of cooking. A big guy like him wore a bear-shaped apron and carried 2 plates of food outside. Ryuji apologized, saying sorry about that. "Making you watch the kids, don't worry," Minato said calmly with a smile, then used magic to make the children float in the air. Seeing this, Ryuji couldn't help but feel helpless. "That's what worries me. This crazy kid. Don't use magic inside the house," he said as he put down the 2 plates on the table, complaining, "I've never heard of anyone using magic to play with kids before." Minato didn't care, lowered his head to look at the little girl beside him, and smiled, saying, "You got scolded." The 3 kids surrounded Minato and played so much that Ryuji even sighed, but it was really surprising. "I mean, you're not bad at babysitting, huh?" Minato suddenly remembered his past life where many children died in natural disasters. After a long silence, Minato sighed and said, "Children are the future of the country." Hearing this, Ryuji couldn't help but feel dissatisfied. "Sounds like my grandpa talking to me." "Be quiet, Minato," he scolded coldly, then quickly played with the 3 kids. Soon dinner was ready. The kids got excited when they saw the food and started eating. Minato also happily ate with everyone, but after the first bite he couldn't help but exclaim, "So delicious! How long has it been since Minato had a proper home-cooked meal? You've been so absorbed in protecting the country that you forgot to take care of yourself." He thought, then suspiciously asked, "By the way, where are your parents?" Ryuji shook his head and replied, "I don't have a father and my mother works late into the night, so I handle the housework and babysit these kids for her. When she's free, she does extra work." Hearing this, Minato couldn't help but feel moved. "You're really busy, huh?" He smiled softly. Ryuji casually said, "It's tough, but I don't hate it. The harder the matter, the more you want to do it right, huh?" Minato nodded in understanding. Ryuji didn't hesitate to admit it and even showed off his muscles. Minato couldn't help but think truly brave but not very clever. After the meal, Ryuji and Minato played a bit with the 3 kids and then went to sleep. Ryuji lay beside Minato and quietly said sorry for the kids' demands. "But you have to stay okay." Minato gently shook his head and replied, "It's okay, this is nice once in a while." He smiled unconsciously. Ryuji gratefully said, "Thank you." Minato refused and casually said, "I didn't do anything for you to say that." But Ryuji shook his head and said, "No, it's about Ruka. She looks more lively than before." "I think it's all thanks to that kid you—" Minato was surprised. "Don't tell me it's some kind of romance, huh?" "Say what you think." Minato frowned and asked, "Do you like her?" Ryuji couldn't help but laugh. "Me and Ruka, that'll never happen. Actually, both of us are misfits, so we just stuck together naturally." Minato was surprised. "Misfits, that's just like me." The next day, Minato and Ryuji went to school together. When they arrived at the school gate, the Mizuha sisters were already waiting there. Seeing them, Zuka complained, "Seriously, you're late." Ryuji hurriedly explained, "Cut me some slack, Kusanagi kept calling, but I couldn't wake up." The Mizuha sisters asked in surprise, "Did you two sleep over at each other's house?" "Sleepover party. Or did you two secretly train without us?" Minato heard their conversation and felt a bit confused. How did they all happen to meet so early in the morning? But he didn't pay much attention. Then, at that moment, 2 people approached from afar. It was Inspector Sugo and Sergeant Karin. Sugo looked at Minato and said, "Can we have a moment of your time, Kusanagi?" Minato sighed helplessly, again. Karin apologetically said, "Sorry to bother you again, this time we have an urgent matter." She said, "The beastmen suddenly appeared and are currently surrounding Tokyo Tower. This might be related to a natural disaster, so we hope to have your cooperation, Minato." He frowned immediately, but said, "I'm just a student." Sugo shook his head seriously and said, "I have been stopping a wave of natural disasters alone. Since then, I have not been considered just a student anymore. Honestly, we can't handle this." Minato squinted suspiciously at him and asked a police officer if this was okay. Sugo's face was extremely sincere, his tone slightly pleading, which meant they were really backed into a corner. "Kusanagi, please cooperate with us." Minato hesitated a bit, then nodded in agreement. "If you guys have no problem, then fine." I will lend you my strength. Sugo was amazed to hear this. Minato really felt helpless. Although he didn't want to stand out anymore, the situation didn't allow him to. Of course, Sugo didn't know Minato's thoughts. Hearing his agreement, he immediately rejoiced. Of course, you will also receive a proper reward. Don't worry, we will also proactively contact the academy to help you. The three of them, Ruka behind, heard this and also wanted to help, so all three proposed together. We also want to help. We can support everyone from behind. We want to join too. Sugo sighed reluctantly, thanking them for the offer. But given the current situation, you guys can't help. Ruka immediately retorted. We are all top students, and before he finished speaking, Sugo coldly cut them off. You are always top of the school, but we are talking about a life-or-death battle here. Then he squinted seriously at the three and asked, or is there anyone confident their abilities can match Kusanagi? This made all three silent, unable to say another word. Seeing they said nothing more, Sugo sighed helplessly and said, you guys should return to the academy now. Let's go. Kusanagi spoke and then led the way to get into the car ready to leave. Before leaving, Minato suddenly called out, which startled the three. Ruka unconsciously smiled. Minato raised an eyebrow and said, you have to try to keep up with me. Hearing this, the three were stunned but quickly replied in unison, of course. Then they turned and headed back to the academy. A little later, at the police headquarters in the leadership department's classroom, the emergency response measures for the natural disaster were discussed. The leader sat in the center and spoke seriously. Hundreds of demon beasts have appeared near Tokyo Tower. We need to come up with a thorough solution to this problem. Before they become a threat to citizens, he said he has requested help from a student who played a key role during the last natural disaster at the Magic Academy. A few days ago, then, he invited Minato to stand up. Hearing his name mentioned, Minato immediately stood up, still wearing his uniform. The police below whispered and gossiped all words of contempt. Karen felt a bit embarrassed and really couldn't stand it anymore. At that moment, Sugo leaned close to the microphone and cleared his throat. Everyone immediately focused on him. Sugo then spoke fiercely. Kusanagi Minato is the student who stopped the natural disaster at the Magic Academy by himself. I witnessed it from a very close distance. Everyone here, no one can match him. He praised Minato to the skies and said he believed cooperating with him was necessary, so treat him as a partner and friend, instead of just a student. This still didn't reduce the useless police's dissatisfaction below, still seeing Minato as a kid who hasn't grown up. Seeing them continue to be noisy, the leader ordered, our mission will not change whether outsiders participate or not. We must immediately eliminate the demon beasts. Everyone return to your units. After this order, everyone quickly left. Some still kept pointing and insulting Minato while leaving. After everyone left, Sugo ran up to Minato and apologetically said sorry about earlier Kusanagi. Minato shook his head slightly to refuse the apology. It's okay, maybe cooperating with a student made them uncomfortable. Seeing Minato's calm reaction, Sugo couldn't help but sigh emotionally. You really have grown up. Compared to him, what are you doing? Sanana Karen was startled and trembling when mentioned. She was too scared to say anything, seeing the two paying attention like that. Minato smiled and reassured, please don't worry about it. Because you don't really care either. Karen truly felt he was like an angel. Then they got into the car and headed to Tokyo Tower. Minato sat in the back and asked suspiciously, how is our combat force? Sugo slowly replied, 80 mages, most of them are mid-level mages, only a few are high-level mages. Minato frowned and was silent after hearing that. Mid-level mages can use level 2 magic. Higher levels can use level 3. While he was thinking, Sugo suddenly hesitated and said, this sounds pretty pathetic. But since I can use level 4 combined magic, I am the trump card of our army. Minato squinted at him and continued to ask, what about the battle plan? Sugo replied in a low voice, in this case, the entire battle will simply rely on magic to overwhelm the magical beasts. It's not exactly a battle plan. If there were only demon soldiers and magical beasts, it wouldn't be too bad, but with higher-level creatures than the demon general, they have higher intelligence. So Minato thought they should prepare a plan for that case as well. Just fighting hand-to-hand can't be called a battle plan. After thinking, he spoke again. From what I see, we don't have any support equipment, right? Sugo reluctantly said, we usually go on missions with comfortable clothes for easy movement. Just that? Minato frowned upon hearing this. But there used to be anti-magical beast devices, right? Sugo nodded slightly. Yes, but now they are rarely used because there aren't many devices left. Minato became more silent. How could there have been so many before? Although I know that magic and mages in this era aren't like before, what the hell has been happening in the past 55 years? From the car mirror, Sugo saw Minato sitting silently in the back, seemingly deep in thought. After a while at the Tokyo Tower area, which was occupied by magical beasts, the police car finally arrived at the location. After getting out, Minato saw the scene in front of him and couldn't help but sigh. No natural disaster had occurred yet, but the number of magical beasts was unusually large. He was wondering what exactly was going on. The police officers seeing this scene, their faces drained of blood, trembling and muttering, "Is this for real?" The number was even higher than reported, and what surprised them even more was, the demon general was also present there. How could they win? They had to request reinforcements from private organizations. Or noble mages would be fine too. Sugo sighed helplessly. I've already sent a request for reinforcements. But they can't arrive here immediately, because recently magical beasts and illegal mages have suddenly appeared everywhere, so they don't have time to care about us. Upon hearing this, the police immediately became anxious and worried. Is there really no other way? Besides taking down all those magical beasts ourselves, that's basically a death sentence. Sugo glanced at Minato and asked, Kusanagi, can you do it? Yes, I can. Minato nodded without hesitation, but the police were dissatisfied and scolded. Stop being arrogant, kid. Don't try to be a lone hero here. How can a kid like you from the Mai family stand a chance against them? Minato ignored them and asked coldly, but there was something strange in his words that made them panic and confused. At that moment, magical beasts suddenly appeared and stirred. The sky, which was originally blue, suddenly turned blood red, covering the blue. Karen saw this and panicked, shouting, "The sky is a natural disaster." Immediately, emergency alerts were issued about an unprecedented large-scale natural disaster. It had engulfed the entire country, and people all over Japan were extremely panicked. Minato squinted at the monsters below, contrasting with his calm demeanor. Sugo's group looked extremely ugly. The police, seeing this for the first time, couldn't help but panic and shout, "Another natural disaster! How can this be? How can such an impossible thing happen?" Minato was immersed in his thoughts. Natural disasters usually happen naturally, but it seemed the magical beasts from before were the cause of this disaster. In just 55 years, they had found a way to cause a natural disaster. Minato was immersed in his thoughts. Natural disasters usually happen naturally, but it seemed the beast demons from last time were the cause of this disaster. Within just 55 minutes, they had already tried to cause a disaster. Seeing the situation was bad, someone suggested it's impossible to handle this place without reinforcements. First, we have to reorganize. Meanwhile, Sugo didn't know what to do. Minato suddenly spoke. They are moving. As he said, the beast demons were advancing toward the city. The police present became even more panicked. They began to look for ways in fear. Some wanted to fight, others wanted to retreat. Seeing this scene, Minato immediately snorted coldly, despising the police looking so cowardly. This remark made a dissatisfied policeman scold. "What are you saying, kid? How can you possibly deal with a demon beast fortress like that?" Minato smiled confidently and spoke, then without hesitation jumped down. His target was the group of demon beasts below, and very quickly he had fallen into their center. Alone, Minato now seemed like he was dancing among the demon beasts and demon soldiers. Seeing him, the demon beasts became frenzied. From above, the police witnessing this scene panicked. "The kid is going to die. Run away quickly." Just as they said this, a powerful dwarf magic demon suddenly appeared, charging forward with momentum. This strength shocked the police. Sugo was equally surprised but more joyful. With just one swing, all the low-level demon beasts around were killed by Minato. The demon soldiers witnessing this were extremely angry. Without hesitation, they all simultaneously summoned their magical power to attack Minato. In an instant, a barrage of magic rushed toward him but hit an invisible barrier, completely blocked outside. Perhaps just a magical barrier was enough. After all, there were still many outsiders watching Minato, so he created a barrier for reassurance then. He used magic to eliminate the demon soldiers in front of him. Sugo looked on, increasingly shocked. What kind of monstrous power is that so Minato can use many magical attributes? Just as I thought it can only be him. Thinking so, Sugo immediately shouted loudly to remind, "Follow him." Karen quickly ran after him. She would also support him. The other police were still trembling, hesitant and afraid to advance, but they quickly steadied their spirits and hurried to follow the two. Although their magic was not as strong as Minato's, handling low-level demon beasts was no problem. Minato in front saw them start fighting and smiled with satisfaction. Not bad at all. However, very soon the demon general appeared before them. Its gigantic body terrified the police there. They were like insects to it. Only a legendary sorcerer could defeat it. But at that moment, a water serpent suddenly appeared, opening its mouth to swallow the demon general. Minato said coldly, "I'll handle this one. The rest is up to you." When the water waves subsided, a large trench appeared on the ground, terrifying the police there. The kid just defeated it. Such terrifying power, Sugo hurriedly reminded everyone. "We must continue to eliminate the demon beasts until the boss appears. Leave the demon general and any stronger types to Kusanagi." Minato in front was killing several demon generals while thinking 60 years ago a global-scale natural disaster had occurred, the first disaster. Next, smaller-scale disasters began to appear one after another, aiming to destroy the world. If the past 60 years really repeated itself, this disaster would spread worldwide. But this time, Minato was here too. He would not let them wipe out humanity. Meanwhile, where Karen was treating the wounded, a demon soldier appeared beside her, causing her to panic. It raised its hand to crush Karen right there. In this critical moment, Minato appeared just in time and killed the soldier. The demon behind Karen saw Minato's steady back, just like that time when the Dark Sorcerer saved her. After eliminating the demon soldier, Minato turned to look at Karen and anxiously asked, "Are you okay?" Karen then regained her composure. "Ah, yes, thank you, Kusanagi." Minato squinted at her, thinking silently that the situation was just like before, did she notice? As he suspected Karen really had realized it, she was wondering why. Minato chose to become a Dark Sorcerer and why he could be so unreasonably strong. But Karen thought Minato would hate her if she asked such questions. Thinking this, she suddenly felt that her behavior was inappropriate since he was a student. She must not have such improper thoughts. While she was confused, a magical beast attacked. Fortunately, Minato pulled Karen aside before using magic to attack the beast. Karen felt guilty looking at her brother and apologized. "Please stay close to me," Minato said quietly. It seemed she couldn't use any offensive magic at all. Karen was a bit startled, but quickly nodded in agreement. But she had a thought, is Minato really a student? He seemed even more mature than her right now. A terrifying scene unfolded. The police here instantly turned pale, panicking and mumbling, "What is this? I can't stop trembling." The demon general was now surrounded by a huge amount of magic power. Seeing this scene, Sugo couldn't help but shout in panic, "A mutated demon general! Why is such a high-level demon general species here?" The police were so scared their legs went weak and they sat down on the ground, despairingly mumbling, "No way. I wonder if the noble mage can defeat this." The only one not afraid was Minato, who stepped forward. Seeing this, the two police officers shouted loudly, reminding him, "Are you stupid? Stop. No matter how strong you are, you have no chance of defeating that monster." But Minato smiled confidently at them and said, "I can do it." These words stunned the police into silence, but very quickly the trembling in their bodies stopped. Karen was silently praying, hoping Minato could defeat the mutated demon general. Sugo eagerly looked at Minato, thinking he might already be as strong as a noble mage. So Minato defeating the mutated demon general was within reach. Thinking this, Sugo smirked excitedly. Now let's see the true power of Minato. To allow Minato to focus on dealing with the mutated demon general, Sugo ordered everyone to concentrate all their forces on exterminating the demon soldiers. At the same time, Minato squinted at the mutated demon general. He fell silent, standing face to face with it. While Minato was thinking, the mutated demon general began to attack. A brilliant flame quickly flew toward Minato, but it only brushed past him before exploding behind smoke and fire filling the sky. Seeing this, the police behind couldn't help but sigh. Only first level and such unreasonable power, these monsters are cruel. Meanwhile, Minato stood calmly brushing dust off his shoulder. The mutated demon general stared at him, its deep voice slowly sounding, "What are you?" Indifferently shrugging, Minato said, "Just an ordinary student, at least for now." These words confused the demon general, and while it was still bewildered, the magic power inside Minato's body suddenly erupted fiercely. Seeing that strong magic power, the demon general immediately felt threatened and muttered, "A strong human killer." Then a large flame appeared in front of Minato. The police far away panicked, level 6 alarm. How can this be? But Minato remained calm, standing there. He was thinking about what to do. Whether he dodged this attack or used magic to attack directly those behind him would inevitably be engulfed in the sea of flames. Meanwhile, the magical beasts were attacking the police behind. Suddenly turning their heads, redirecting magic toward Minato in an instant, a large number of spells charged together, creating a terrifying scene. Sugo's expression instantly turned ugly. "They're cooperating, that's impossible." Karen was equally terrified, urgently shouting, "Kusanagi, run!" But Minato still stood calmly alone, fighting against the barrage of magic spells charging at him. At the same time, the brilliant flames were wildly rushing toward him, but before they could touch Minato, a huge wave appeared and the flames were extinguished by the water. Moreover, the magic spells from other magical beasts were also blocked by Minato, because before they could reach him, they hit an invisible barrier. This scene shocked the mutated demon general. Surprised, Minato raised an eyebrow and coldly asked, "Is that all?" Even Sugo nearby widened his eyes and gaped. "What kind of freak is this kid?" Karen was no exception. She exclaimed, "What just happened?" At this moment, Sugo truly felt it was beyond his imagination. Witnessing it with his own eyes, he couldn't believe such an absurd thing was happening right before him. Even Karen couldn't help but sigh. Only a noble mage could use level 6 magic. It was a special technique comparable to the Kusanagi remote control. How could it be possible? Sugo lightly pursed his lips and murmured, but what was even more surprising was she could simultaneously use a second spell. Usually only one type of magic can be used at a time, and before using another spell you have to wait a while. Yet Minato used two different spells almost at the same time, which really surprised Sugo. Even one type was powerful enough. Using more than one type at the same time, he truly felt Minato might even surpass a noble mage. The more Sugo spoke, the happier he became. His intuition could not be wrong. Minato was truly the person he was looking for, a second Ichikami Minato, but Sugo had no idea that Minato was actually that great mage. Reborn right at this moment. The demon general crazily charged toward Minato. Minato remained calm and said, "This place is getting boring, let's go somewhere more fun." These words confused the demon general. Before it could recover, an invisible force threw it into the air. Minato had used magic to fling it high, but it quickly used magic to stand firm again. Immediately after, Minato quickly flew up to face the demon general, smirking. "Looks like you can use magic too, huh?" The demon general squinted at Minato and spoke maliciously. "If you don't want to suffer another tactic." Before it finished, Minato coldly interrupted. "I don't give a damn about your scratching cat tactics," because up here he no longer needed to hold back. Seeing Minato refuse to cooperate, the demon general charged to attack, but Minato easily dodged its strikes. Naturally, the demon general did not give up. It crazily attacked again, forcing Minato to slide backward. Taking advantage of this, it summoned magic. Minato furrowed his brow and looked up. A fireball appeared. Intense heat spread through the air. At the same time, the demon general closed in on Minato without hesitation and fiercely struck down, causing Minato to fall from the sky. On the ground, the demon general looked down from above and roared. Dust and smoke filled the air, but when the dust settled, it was shocked because Minato was still standing there, without a scratch. The demon general couldn't believe it and shouted, "How is this possible?" Of course, Minato would not explain to it. He dashed from the ground and appeared in front of the demon general in an instant, smirking, "Looks like your magic is no longer usable." Only close combat remained, but it was useless anyway. At this point, Minato's eyes became resolute. Without hesitation, he charged at the demon general and coldly said, "You can't defeat me." In an instant, his powerful fist struck directly, sending the demon general flying. It couldn't believe it and muttered, "No way a human fist could work." Then it used magic again to stand firm. It was now furious to the peak and angrily shouted, "You damn bastard, what the hell are you?" Minato did not answer but smirked and said, "You think I can only use magic? Then I'll show you," he said, "my exclusive technique," and smiled. A strange magical aura appeared around him. It was colorful again. In an instant, it burst in the air with a power that seemed to want to devour everything. Seeing this, the demon general immediately panicked. What kind of terrifying magic is this? Even Sugo and Karen were no exception. What was happening to this child? Something was happening in the air. Minato ignored everyone's reactions and continued to gather magical power. He closed his eyes as if wanting to gather all the magic in the air. When he felt it was enough, Minato slowly opened his eyes. Confidence was clear on his face, and his aura had changed. The demon general grew more and more terrified, but stubbornly shouted, "Even if you cover your whole body with magic, human attacks won't affect us." "Then let's see about that." Minato sneered, then suddenly appeared in front of the demon general in the blink of an eye. The demon general immediately panicked, trying to dodge, but it was too late. Minato's fist had already struck down. Not only that, he unleashed a series of punches toward the demon general. Minato's momentum was overwhelmingly fierce, gradually forcing the demon general into a disadvantageous position. This astonishing scene truly made Chosugo unable to believe his eyes. He muttered in confusion, "That kid is overpowering the demon general in a one-on-one fight. How could a human's punch possibly harm a demon beast?" And not only that, Minato could even injure it using magic. This was truly beyond imagination. In just a blink, the demon general's body was covered with wounds, making it frustrated as it asked, "Why? How could a human's attack be effective?" Minato said coldly, "Ordinary punches or weapons mean nothing to you guys, but if you channel a large amount of magical power into them, it's different." He attacked it while his body was enveloped in magical power. It was an attack combining both magic and martial arts. Minato said it could be called composite magic kung fu for easier understanding. The demon general grew increasingly furious, roaring fiercely, "A mere human brat surpasses me. That cannot be true." Immediately after, the demon general frantically charged to attack Minato, but Minato easily dodged its attack and countered by punching it in the stomach. Just one punch directly pierced the demon general's stomach, causing it to fall to the ground like a torn kite. Its body fell into the center area of the demon beasts. When it was defeated, the sky returned to its original blue color. Seeing this scene, everyone immediately cheered joyfully. The disaster has stopped. That kid did it. Seeing everyone happy, Sugo hurriedly reminded everyone not to let their guard down and to clear out the remaining demon beasts. Minato looked down from above, relaxed, and smiled, thinking, the rest can be left to the police. Thinking this, he quickly withdrew, and the magical power around his body soon completely disappeared. Minato returned to normal and chuckled to himself, thinking about something. It's been a while since I used composite magic kung fu. I'm really rusty. Immediately after, Minato landed on the ground, but the scene before him startled him a bit. The police had finished handling the demon beasts and were now standing in a very formal line. Seeing him return, Sugo immediately spoke firmly. We sincerely appreciate your hard work during the attack on the boss just now. On behalf of the police department, I thank you for your cooperation. Salute Mr. Kusanagi Minato. As soon as he finished speaking, all the police officers saluted Minato with the most solemn ceremony.